Hey everybody, it's Romania Black. Well, we made it through half of season 4 part 1. We're on part 2 of season 4 part 1 now, the second half. I feel like I've watched a whole season. I thought about that today. I was like, man, this whole first part, these first 8 episodes of season 4, and I'm gonna just call it season 4, part 1 technically, but the whole first 8 episodes, it felt like season 2 on steroids, right? There's been a big callback to lots of things from season 1. It's all come full circle, and we're going to talk about that in my notes here in a second. But just the character development and the look into the characters, and then the mystery and intrigue of what was going to happen during this entire battle during Willie's theatrical performance, it all felt like it was ramping up like season 2, only 1,000 times bigger. So that's the vibe, and I really liked season 2, so I've really liked season 4 so far. But I've got some notes, not as many as last time, but they're pretty important notes. So episode 6 just came out on Patreon, and episode 4 came out on YouTube, so I am recording a little bit ahead. I'm glad that I have, because some people have noted some things about episode 8, and I was like, oh, I'm glad that I watched that already, so just be careful of spoilers, right? And I'm not on any social media anymore. I can't be on YouTube anymore. I got on YouTube the other day to check a comment, and out on the side where it shows you those recommended videos, I just glanced over and saw a picture of Flock, and I turned my head and was like, no. So now I'm not getting on YouTube at all. I'm not watching any videos on YouTube. I'm just getting on Studio to check comments, and if I have to reply to a comment, if I get on my phone, I can get into the reply part of the comments, and it doesn't show me any videos. So that's where I'm at in avoiding spoilers, and I've muted everything on Twitter. I'm just not interacting with social media at all. It's great. I've gotten lots of things done, but there have been some people in the Discord send me some videos, and I'm like, okay, I'll go watch those, but that's on my phone where I won't get spoiled. So that's where we're at. But I know it'll be worth it because I've made it this far. So, and I feel like at this point we've concluded an arc. We've concluded the Rescue Eren arc. What a Rescue Eren arc. We've concluded that. And we've done the Reiner Pain arc. And which I have a feeling that the Reiner Pain arc is going to become a Reiner season arc. Because poor Reiner, I said this in the Discord, I've never wanted to give a character in an anime a hug like I want to give Reiner a damn hug. This poor man has suffered. And I have a feeling that Isayama's not done with him. So, but yeah, him and Colt have ran off. Whatever that amounts to. I'm pretty excited about this second half of part 1 because there's so many questions. Going into this season, it was all about learning the perspective of the other side, of the Marleyans, of the warrior crew, which I've waited for this entire series, so I've been really happy with that. But I have so many questions about Zeke, so many questions. Weird Pianist on Twitter and on Patreon was like, what are your thoughts about Zeke? And I'm like, I honestly am staying pretty neutral because we don't know enough about Zeke. We've seen his childhood up until the point where he turned Grisha in, and then we time skip to the point where he was about to become the Beast Titan. But we don't really know much about his motivations, why he chose the warrior program other than to protect his grandparents. We don't know a lot about Zeke. And Zeke is hard for me to read. He's a weird character. I really am curious about how everybody else on the ship feels about Zeke being there because he's caused a bunch of people's deaths that are connected to them and they seem fine. So there's so much leading up to this arc that just happened that I want backstory on, and I'm hoping that this episode or the next episode take us back to that to see how we've gotten to this point, how Eren and Mikasa and Armin's relationship have gotten to this point, why everybody's lost their trust in Eren. I mean, Eren held them hostage basically until they came and got him, but I have so many questions, and I like that because I was afraid at this point in the series that going into this arc, I felt like the only big mysteries were Ymir, Fritz, and the Titan War. No, there's lots of other mysteries, and that has me excited to see what else we have in store going into this second half of part 1. It's pretty exciting. But I do have some notes. It's going to be a long intro. Y'all know this. So I do have some notes. Weird Pianist commented about Gabby being the gender-bent version of Eren. We talked about that in the last reaction. But basically, Eren's created another version of himself. He's created a monster just like him. And yeah, through his actions, although I would argue Gabby may have a little bit more talent than Eren at that age. At age 12, I think Gabby has more talent than Eren did at that age. You know, even going through the survey court, Eren was average, right? That's been the whole thing of him as a main character. He's average. He just has the resolve, right? I would argue Gabby's a bit more competent than Eren at this age, which makes her a little bit scarier if she has the same drive as Eren. But yeah, same thing. Sacha Purvis, I'll come back to your comment in a little bit. Nuclear Gandhi pointed out that Willie never wore an armband in public, even during his press conferences. Like, Willie was creating a clear distinction and division between him and other Eldians. Like, he did not want to be viewed in the same vein as other Eldians. And he made a point of that in his speech, saying he hated the blood he was cursed with. So I think it's interesting that Willie created this persona and image of him as this wonderful person, but it was never tied to the armband. And that kind of goes back to Gabby in the last episode, when Gabby was telling Falco, she's like, I wanted to become someone that when people looked at me and Eldians could be proud of the armbands that they wore. And I'm like, Gabby, honey, Willie, if you're going by that logic, Willie would be the person you would strive to be like, because he was revered as a normal person. But the thing is, Willie never wore the armband. So that symbol of oppression, Willie completely discarded. So that armband being on her is always going to be a mark that she's different. Until she ditches it like Willie did, it's not going to matter. So that was really interesting. I'm glad you pointed that out, Nuclear Gandhi. That was really cool. Jake Collins also pointed out, speaking of Willie, that Willie, I always thought it was a weird name. I'm like, why would you name your character Willie? Seems odd. But Jake Collins pointed out that it could be taken from the name Vili, which is the brother of Odin who slayed Ymir the giant in Norse mythology. And I was like, oh, okay. That makes perfect sense. That's a really clever tie-in to like a nomenclature. I'm like, okay, Isayama had a plan with this. That ties in perfectly. And it should have been a little giveaway with the Tibers and everything. So I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. Pretty neat. I like that a lot. Thank you, Jake. Siafik and the Weird Pianist both noted that Zophia's death was predicted and foreshadowed. That I commented back in episode 4 that I thought it was weird that the cat they had that weird moment where they stopped at the stand and the cat was there. I'm like, why are we focusing on this cat? It's weird. Isayama doesn't usually focus on animals in this series. I think the only time he's really focused on animals is when the Beast Titan killed the horse in season 2, and there was like a shot of deer in season 1 to prove a point that the Titans didn't care about animals. So I thought that was weird that it focused on this cat. I'm like, why of all times is Isayama now focusing on an animal? The reason is because it was a black cat, which is symbolically bad luck, but also the woman with the bread. There's that weird scene in episode 4 where they stop by the townspeople putting up the stand, and the woman with the bread, and there's the drunk man who gets crushed by a boulder later on. And it felt weird in the moment. I'm like, why is Isayama taking us to this random scene? Like, it felt out of place in the episode. I'm like, why are we doing this? The woman says that whoever the drunk man hugs gets bad luck. He hugs Zofia. So later, Zofia gets crushed by the boulder. And I was like, oh, it's just foreshadowing. The black cat, the drunk man hugging Zofia and it being bad luck. It was all foreshadowing. Isayama was like, I'll just put this in here for funsies. I'm like, ugh. So thank you for pointing that out. That was really, really good. Mary Axo comments on my clear disdain for Porco. And okay, for the record, I give Porco and Flock a lot of flack in this series. I will defend giving Flock flack all day long. We'll talk about that here in a second. I'll defend that. But Mary noted that Porco is actually kind of like Jean. And the moment that she said this, I was like Jean? What? But it kind of makes sense. I think there's a distinction between the two, but Mary points out that both have issues with the authority that they work for, but in the end, they do comply. So both Porco and Jean have had issues with the military that they are involved in, but just like the military notes in episode 2, and just like we've seen with Jean, in the end, they do go along with the authorities, but they try to do so in a way that they try to justify their own actions within that authority, which I think is really cool that there is a connection between those two characters. And both also kind of tease. Porco teases Reiner, Jean teases Eren, and we've established that Eren and Reiner are really similar. So it's kind of like their roles in that relationship are very similar too. And I was like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. I will maintain, though, that a big distinction between Jean and Porco is that Porco is a lot more impatient and a lot more arrogant than Jean. Jean, especially as we've seen in the last episode, thinks things through very carefully and very reasonably, and he takes his time sorting out. He doesn't make any harsh, rash decisions. He thinks things out. Whereas we've also seen in the last couple episodes that Porco does not. He can be very hasty and impatient. And that's the big distinction between the two characters. But I'm glad you pointed that out, Mary. I'm going to try in future episodes to maybe reserve a little bit of judgment and be a little bit more open-minded towards Porco. I still don't care for his character, but I will be more open-minded. So thank you for opening my eyes to that comparison between him and Jean. I think that's really, really cool. So yeah, I'll be nicer. I put in my notes, I'll be nicer. Not to Flock, though. We'll talk about him. And then R.L. Lequender noted that Reiner, when he said, when Eren told him, he's like, Reiner, it's been 4 years. That was in episode 5 of season 4. And when he saw Bertolt, Eren said, Bertolt, or he said Colossal Titan, it's been 5 years. And that was episode 5 of season 1. Parallels. So many parallels to those episode 5s, right? Christopher Peterson noted that Ackerman kind of sounds like Akuma, which is Japanese for devil, which makes a lot of sense because Levi is basically a demon himself, the way he fights. But also Mikasa has been constantly compared to as a monster and a demon herself. Ties to the Ackerman name. I thought that was pretty cool. And then Sacha Purvis. I'm going to round out this whole intro, and I know it's been long, but the last couple intros have been long. What do y'all expect? But this is pretty important, I think. Sacha Purvis notes that there are 2 episodes. They were like, you should go back and rewatch episodes 11 and episodes 19 of season 1. Just go back and rewatch them for funsies. Because there's a couple quotations that are pretty interesting about those. Before we talk about that, though, they also noted that the scene of Jean in episode 1 of season 4 is anime only. And I was like, what? That wasn't in the manga? So, of course, they said that the manga readers were freaking out. I don't want to know any more manga spoilers, though, of what's similar and different from the manga and the anime, because I am going to react to the manga. I'm going to review the manga and talk more about it in the recap of what I'm going to do with the manga, but I am eventually going to read it and talk about it on this channel. So I want to be surprised by what's included and excluded from the manga that's in the anime. So I don't think that was much of anything, so don't worry about it, Sacha, but I just, for everybody else, for future reference, I don't want to be surprised. I want to be surprised by what's left out of the anime that's included in the manga. But I thought that was interesting. And also, people call Flock King Flock. I was like, hell no. Ew. But then they added saying that it's like, usually the meme is like Flock with the Burger King crown. I'm like, I can get behind that. I love giving Flock 9 kinds of hell because he's a little shit and he deserves it. Sorry, Flock fans. Flock is clearly A-ranked for me because I love teasing him so much. Because usually he deserves it. But we'll see how Flock's character develops in this season. I may be like Isayama may make me eat my words. So I'll wait for that judgment to come. But the last thing I want to talk about is I did go back right before recording this and I watched episodes 11 and episode 19 of season 1. Fun times. And there's a few distinct moments that I'm glad you recommended me watching those because I was like, oh crap. And this is why I'm excited to go back and read the manga because I feel like reading the manga will be like experiencing the story for a second time, only now with all this context. So for example, in episode 11, there's a couple key things. One, Pixis talks about that if something beyond man appeared as a powerful foe, mankind will take up arms in unity against it. Talking about fighting the Titans. The Titans were something that made mankind unite together against a common enemy, right? Kind of like what Eren is forcing now, right? And at the time, in episode 11, Eren kind of dismisses it. And he's like, oh, that sounds really boring. And he's like, people don't get along here at all despite the Titans, so I don't really believe that. So that's interesting to note. It's kind of what Eren's doing now, is forcing the world against parity, but maybe this is a sign that Eren doesn't think the world will be completely united against parity, that they're going to have their own division within themselves. So maybe that's why he's not so worried about it. I don't know. I thought that was interesting. But more so is later on in episode 11, Eren talks about his role and says, because he has that role that he's the experiment that the government's been doing and he's going to plug up the hole in Trost. And he tells Armin Mikasa that he's willing to go through with it, saying, quote, even if my role is false, I have to succeed. So I'm like, that made me think, okay, is this role he's taking on as the antagonist, is it a false role? But he knows that's the only way that he's going to succeed in his mission, so that's why he's doing it. Would be an interesting callback to that ideology Eren's had since season 1. And also Rico, who's still alive. I'm curious if we'll see Rico again in this season. She's still alive, but going back to episode 11, Rico says that you have to be dead serious in fulfilling your mission for the sake of those that you care about. So if that's the case and Eren takes those words to heart, Rico's words, that's why he's so dead serious about, causing that scene during Willie's theatrical performance, because he's like, I've got to complete the mission. It all ties back. It's amazing how everything's coming back full circle. But one more thing, and I know this intro has been long, but in episode 19, Bite, great episode. Going back, it was like such a nostalgic trip watching the episode again. But yeah, Levi, you told Eren in episode 19 of season 1, you said choose, believe in yourself, or believe in the Survey Corps and me. I can believe in my own abilities or the choices of companions I trust, but no one will ever know how it will turn out. So choose for yourself whichever decision you'll regret the least. Hashtag no regrets. So yeah. And then in that, Eren's like, why should I have to rely on others? And Levi makes the comment that Eren is a monster, not because of his Titan ability, but because, quote, no one can tame him, no matter the cage that he's put in. I was like, shit. This has been foreshadowed since season 1. I've talked about Eren as the antagonist since season 1. This has been foreshadowed since then. And that whole dialogue about choosing, believing in yourself, that's what Eren's doing now. So Rico, Levi, Pixis, your words of wisdom have shone through and affected Eren. He believes in himself. He's enacting your words. But, it's one of those things where, like, be careful what you wish for, right? We wanted Eren to become someone with resolve that would not hesitate in his actions. And here we are. So yeah, that's where I'm at going into episode 9. That's where I'm at. And I'm really excited about this episode. I want some backstory. I want some things explained. I want to know what Historia's been up to, what Parody's been up to. I want to know how Zeke and Eren got hooked up and got this crazy plan going. I want to know about Onyonkopon and Yelena and how they got on board with all this. I want backstory. And if we get it through one episode, fine. If we get it for the rest of this second half, fine. I just want to have answers to my questions. And it's Isayama, so I know that he's going to give them to me. So there's that. But yeah, I'm excited, y'all. I'm ready. R.I.P. Sasha. We will toast her heavily in the recap. But in the meantime, we need to get started. We need to jump into episode 9 here and see what all happens. So we're going to start episode 9 of Attack on Titan. There's a torch here in this thumbnail starting out. Lanterns 3.0. We've upgraded to torches, baby. We're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1. Let's do this. That was the fastest episode of Attack on Titan I think I've watched so far. That was way too fast. What the hell? Having said that, this episode is with Armin doing exactly what it's like. Armin and I are on the same wavelength. Armin and I are like spiritually connected beyond the screen. Like Armin it's speaking my language. And several of you have pointed out, and as we've noted in previous reactions, for the longest time, Isayama said that Armin is a representation kind of Isayama's view in this whole thing. That like Isayama connects with Armin. Armin is our narrator. And so, oh God, this whole thing, we're finally getting into so much, things are connecting. The dots are connecting, especially for Eren and how he's getting to this state. Because it's always been there with Eren. That's the thing. Eren's always kind of been in this mode. It's finally tuned now to my terror. So we're going to talk about Zeke. We're going to talk about Eren, about Armin, about Mikasa. God, Sasha, Nicolo. We'll talk about that. Talk about ships. Talk about Annie and Armin. Suspicions, things. But yeah, this whole episode was just setting up like the idea of trust, the idea of trust, and the idea of faith, the idea of freedom. Like all these topics getting talked about in this episode. It's so low key and it feels like just a bridge episode. It's taking us back 3 years ago, right? So we need to talk about this. But yeah, oh my gosh. So let's just dive in. I honestly, at the start of this episode, we have Armin. And I thought for the longest time that Armin was talking to Gabby and Falco. I thought Armin... I think if anybody needs to talk to Gabby and Falco, it's Armin. Eren needs to stay as far away from Gabby as Falco as possible. Eren needs to stay away from them. Stranger danger, no. Especially because Gabby hates Eren. So Eren needs to stay away. Or if Eren comes up, he needs to have a chaperone. Eren does not need to be left alone with these children. Bad things tend to happen. So no, I don't think that's the case at all. I don't think Eren needs to be around these kids by himself. Unless Armin's maybe with him. I feel like Armin needs to talk. I feel like Falco and Armin would be on the same page. And Gabby is just season 1 Eren, only against Eren. So that's pretty much where we're at. But I was so trying to like focus on what was happening visually that I missed a lot of the dialogue at the beginning of this scene where Armin says, I doubt this is something you want to hear, but just listen. Talking to Annie of all people. And this was the scene that was in the end credits of season 3, the part 2 end credits for season 3, where it showed Armin holding the shell. And it's him talking to Annie with the shell that represents that dream of freedom that he thought he and Eren shared. But now he's realizing it's hollow inside. It's kind of we talked about the Tibers are represented by a shiny shell like that. Like it looks all polished and nice, and inside it's hollow. So that kind of makes me think that when Armin talks about that he thought he knew Eren, but now he's not so sure. I'm like, Armin, I don't think you really knew Eren at all. I think that Eren just... that dream you thought you shared, it was just a hollow, empty promise. It wasn't really there. Eren just, he knew about the ocean. He just was thinking about his version of freedom was different than Armin's. I don't think Armin realized that at the time. I think Armin thought him and Eren were on the same page. And they never were. And I think Armin is just now getting around to realizing that catalyst, that thing that tied them together, that dream of freedom, was never the same between them. And he thought it was, but it wasn't. So... we're going to kind of put where everybody is in all of this on this side over here. So Gabby and Falco, we'll come back to them, but they are in a jail cell, which is probably, in hindsight for the best, because we've seen how people are treating some of the Marleyans outside of the jail cell, so maybe it's better that they're there. Zeke, we're going to talk about Zeke. Zeke is in the forest of the giant trees, of all places. Very curious about that. We'll get to that point. But he is in the forest of the giant trees. He's over there. Nicolo. I really like Nicolo's character. He's with Jean and Co. Eren is sexily in a basement somewhere. I don't like this. It's like with the Reiner's Glow Up. I was like, this feels awkward and weird. We'll talk about that. But we have Eren. Here's the thing. Eren, Mikasa, and Armin... in this episode, in the present time, are all separate. They are not together. They're all on their own. That's a big thing in this episode for me, is seeing them not together, seeing them off doing their own things. We've always seen Armin, Mikasa, and Eren together, and in the flashback, they're together. But now... in light of Sasha's death and in light of all this stuff taking place, they're all separated from each other, which I think is important. And Zeke's with Levi. We're going to make note of that. For the record, I love Zeke and Levi's dynamic. It's fascinating. It's fascinating. And when we get to that scene, I'm rewatching the episode, when we get to that scene with him, I want to talk about it. But it's fascinating. And so then, Armin being with Annie. Man, you know what? A lot of you way back in season 1, around the time of Smile, I was like, okay, I could kind of see the Armin and Annie ship, and a lot of you were like, I was like, okay. Now I definitely see it. The question is, I'm watching Yona of the Dawn at the same time, and in that series, you should watch it. It's really good. There's a little themes that tie from Attack on Titan into Yona, only it's not nearly as dreadful. But in Yona, there's this mythology, and these figures have kind of like Titan blood, kind of like the Titan shifters. They have a certain blood flowing through their veins, and this mythology says that a lot of things they do is dictated by that blood. Kind of like the memories here. I've debated in previous reactions whether or not Eren is somewhat affected by Grisha's memories, if that's affecting a lot of his actions and thought processes. There's a part of me that wonders if Armin talking with Annie is spurned by the memories of Bertolt because Bertolt had a crush on Annie, if part of it is spurned on by that. But I'll argue no, because this ties back to Smile in season 1. This ties back to Armin and Annie's relationship. And way back in season 1, Armin trying to connect to Annie back then, being like, once he found out she was the female Titan, being like, why are you doing this? Why is this happening? You clearly, and this kind of goes back to earlier on this season when we found out that Annie never wanted to be on this island. She was just doing this to protect her family and to protect her father and get back to him. She really didn't want to be there. She was definitely not on board with the mission. She just wanted to get the job done and go home. And so Armin trying to connect to her is so fascinating because it's like he's trying to understand her and talk about it. And God, the themes in this episode is exactly what I needed. For the record, I love this episode. It's exactly what I needed. It is reinforcing so many of my thoughts with the series. Because yeah, going into episodes 6, 7, and 8, you wonder what Isayama is thinking. He's projecting this view of good versus evil. And this episode complicates it in such a way, but I think it's getting across what Isayama is trying to get at and why it's so difficult. I said in a comment, I was like, this series is the definition of it's not as easy as it sounds. And that's exactly what the series is. But, okay, this conversation with him and Annie 3 years ago. So, we had Shiga and Sheena. We need to point that out. We had the Shiga and Sheena battle, right? And then 1 year passed before the scout ship from Marley came. All right, they had Onyon and Yelena in it. So 1 year had passed, right? Within that year, Zeke devises this plan. All right? Within the year, Zeke devised this plan. That we're going to come back to that because, for the record, I don't trust Zeke at all. I think Levi is very wary and very right to be cautious of Zeke. I maybe Yelena and Onyon, Yelena's going to follow Zeke to the ends of the earth. This episode made it abundantly clear. She is going to follow him because she's a devout follower of him. I don't trust Zeke at all. I think that Zeke has reasons for what he's doing, but I don't trust him. And I think Levi is very proper to be cautious. So we will get to that, though. So Zeke devises this plan to quote-unquote free Eldia. All right. We'll talk about that. But Zeke devises that plan within the year while they are at war with other nations. I think it's important that they say other nations because that implies that it wasn't just the Mideast Allied forces, unless, well, that's multiple nations put together. So they're at war with other nations too within the year. So whenever they came back and were not successful, that's when all that came about. So, okay. So we get that established, and that's when, around the time that Yelena, we don't exactly know when Yelena and Onyonkopon joined Zeke's forces, but we know that they were at least part of it within that year. All right. And then the scout ship got taken from Marley. And Nicolo was on that. Now, Nicolo was not with Yelena and Anya. Nicolo was just a prisoner of war, essentially. He was just a prisoner of war that kind of became acclimated to being there. He's a Marleyan, right? Yeah, he's a Marleyan. He is not an Eldian. And for all we know, I don't think Yelena and Onyon are Eldians either. I think that they're Marleyans. We'll go back to that discussion, but I'm going to put that up there. I think they're Marleyan too. They just kind of joined forces with Zeke because they were Marleyans. They were Marleyans by colonization. Kind of like how the Marleyans got subjugated by Eldia back in the Eldian Empire. They're kind of in the same boat. Okay, interesting. But yeah, that whole shell representing this idea of idealism and freedom. And then Armin says back then, we still might have been able to change something 3 years ago. Saying that now, so Armin, talk about Armin up here. Armin is very doubtful. He's doubtful that there's hope. Which is sad. I don't like seeing Armin doubtful like that. So we go back 3 years ago. This is what I've been waiting for the entire the entire season is to us, especially after episode 6, is to find out what the heck's been going on. So, yeah, the Marleyans go ashore. They go ashore. And these are Marleyans. They're not Eldians. They're part of the Marley Navy because they don't have the armband, right? They don't have the soldier armband. So, interesting. Okay, and Yelena and Onyon are then they're Marleyans. They're not Eldians either. Okay, but their homelands were taken over by Marley. And it's funny because Eren, as the Attack Titan, his hair has grown out a little bit over the course of a year, but it's not grown out a lot. So it's, you know, it's a little bit longer, but not too long. The shot of him carrying the ship. Again, I watched episode 11 and episode 19 of season 1 today, and it's just a callback to Tross, like him carrying the boulder over his neck, him carrying the ship, like bringing the ship ashore. Very interesting. It's a nice callback to that. But yeah, basically he dumps the ship and everything. It's very much like Eren Kruger, only Eren Kruger destroyed the ship. And then Hanji, welcome friends from Marley to Parody Island. And they're all in their old get-up and everything. Our guests have come so far across the sea. Join us for some tea. Like her skit, like she has a rhyme. She has a little rhyme scheme and everything. She's like, come out to sea, join us for tea. And then you have Nicolo, who just looks like he's got a gun. He's got a sword to his back, not a gun. They don't have the guns yet. He has a sword to his back and he just looks freaked out. He's like, oh God. And Nicolo's the chef. Okay. We're already friends with this guest that arrived before you. And he's like, shit, he's from the scout ship. I need to turn this down a little bit. You can barely hear Hachi like squealing. Oh my gosh. Nicolo. And Levi's like, I ain't here to mess around. And Nicolo tells him to shoot him. He's like, just forget about me and shoot him. And the one guy was going to do that. He was. Curiously, though, Sasha had the gun, had the rifle. Sasha had the rifle, which looks a lot like the rifles that the Marleyans use, by and by. But she had the rifle like she was going to shoot if it came down to it. But in the end, she doesn't. It's Yelena that kills him. Yelena shoots him point blank and kills him. And then her and Onyon take over the rest of the people on the ship. And so, yeah, they're just, the Marleyans have nothing to do with the Eldians. They're like, nope, you guys drink pig piss and die. It's like, meh. And then that's when they notice the Titan. And God, Eren looks so intimidating, just standing there looking down at them. And they're like, ah, crap. And then they're like, okay. And they clearly know it's not the Colossal or the female Titan, so they must assume that it's an Attack Titan. And then that's when there's a fire and a shot, and that's when Yelena kills him. And Hanji's like, oh my gosh. And I'm sure that they had never heard a gun like that go off. So they're like, oh, what happened? And you see all of them standing there. And I like that they all look like Armin and Jean look pre-time skip. Connie looks younger. Mikasa and Sasha kind of look similar, but they don't look too different now other than Mikasa's hair length. But yeah, then Yelena shoots him. Interesting. Yelena is an interesting character. And her eyes, they're not blue. Her eyes are almost like gray, like a coal black almost. They're interesting. But you know who she reminds me of when they said that big, tall woman? You know who she reminds me of? She reminds me of off Game of Thrones. Oh gosh. Oh, she's the tall woman in Game of Thrones that's the blonde. I can't remember her name, but Jaime Lannister like goes on adventures with her. It's gonna come to me. She's one of my favorite characters, and I hate that I can't think of her name right now. I need to look that up real quick. What is her name? Is it Brienne? It's Brienne is her name. There we go. I was like, I know her. She's one of my favorite characters. She reminds me a lot of Brienne from Game of Thrones. I wonder, Isayama's a fan of Game of Thrones, so I wonder if he based her character off of Brienne. That's very interesting. But they tell her to get her hands up, and she's like, no, drop your weapons. And then the Marleyans that are the brave volunteers. And that's when she says, Hanji, I'd be happy to accept your invitation. Let's have tea. And Hanji's like, I didn't think this was going to happen. And Levi's like, the hell? And then Eren, and that's when she says, I've longed to meet you, Eren. Because you're Zeke's brother. If I can't get with Zeke, I could get with the brother of Zeke. You know? No, God, no. No, Yelena and Eren. Ugh, no. I find it curious, though. We'll talk about Eren and Historia in this, because my Eren and Historia ship lives on. We'll talk about this. But I feel like these Jaegers, these Jaegers and their blondes, let me tell you, these Jaegers and their blondes. You've got Kruger, you've got Dinah Fritz, you have Yelena, you have Historia. Mikasa, you got no chance, girl. It's Carla, she had no chance. Well, she did, but then, you know, Dinah Fritz came in and was like, no, jealous woman syndrome. No, but yeah, it's interesting. I find that it's interesting to me that Yelena kind of looks similar to Dinah a wee bit, and she has a crush on Zeke. I find it curious. I'm interested to see where that goes. I'm wondering if Zeke knows that she has a crush on him, because Peak made it sound like a devout follower, so I'm like, surely Zeke knows. But that's curious. Maybe Zeke's just not into tall blondes. I don't know. I find it curious. So yeah, we'll talk about Yelena. Yelena over here, she's all aboard Eren's train too. Yep, all with Eren, and views, we're going to talk about this, views Zeke as a god. Anyone can be a god or a devil, it just takes someone to believe in them. And Yelena is case in point. She's a very interesting character. I don't know how, again, like Zeke, she's hard to read. There's a part of me that really likes her character, and she's kind of like no nonsense. But then there's a part of me that, like Zeke, I don't trust. Onyon, I trust. I trust Onyon. He seems like a very morally kind, good character. He will probably die, but I like Onyon a lot. And when we get to his scene, I want to talk about it. But Yelena, she's kind of shady a little bit. She gives off like a kind of shady vibe, and I don't know how to read her yet. Very much like Zeke, which is fitting because they follow each other, or she follows him. So yeah, so that huge lady of theirs shot and killed her comrade, that huge lady. And so they have the tents and everything set up, right? And everybody's got the survey, the ODM gear. It's so nostalgic that we've seen the Survey Corps in like these black stealth suits. It's so nostalgic to see them back in their old garb from seasons 1 through 3. So nostalgic. You know what else is nostalgic? Seeing our chaotic trio of Jean, Connie, and Sasha. And Sasha looking all mumbly with her drooly mouth. Connie's like slowly growing his hair out. You can tell it's been a year. Everybody's growing their hair out. Connie's growing his fuzzy hair out. Jean, you can see he's starting to grow his hair out. He just doesn't have the beard yet, right? And Sasha looks about the same. And Connie asks, I wonder what her goal is. And Jean says, who knows, whether friend or foe, she's not to be trusted. Here's the thing. Jean, you are our king. We will follow you to the ends of the earth. But I love that Jean says this, and I am on board with Jean. Yeah, whether friend or foe, she is not to be trusted. I totally believe that. And Jean, as we have established, is a very good judge of character. So I believe Jean on this one. She is not to be trusted. No. And we'll get to maybe why later on. And then, yeah. And then Mika says no napping, Sasha. So this is a nice little scene here with Armin and Mikasa and all of them together, because it shows when Mikasa grabs Sasha by the hair and says no napping. It's a nice callback to, it makes sense now, because in the last episode when Armin and Mikasa were like sobbing over Sasha, it was really sad and touching, but this helps to reinforce that even 3 years ago, that friendship between them had been developing and growing. And so we see Armin and Mikasa look kind of like their older selves there. And then I love Armin has this sparkle in his eyes. And he says, but their willingness to share information is unbelievably lucky for us. Because yeah, that's been the whole thing in seasons 1 through 3. Erwin even talked about this. Erwin and Levi had this conversation too. I think it was Erwin, where he was saying that our biggest thing is that we kill people. When we kill the enemy, we kill sources of information. We don't get to learn anything because we have to kill them in the moment. So we don't progress, right? So for Armin, this is amazing, because not only they're willing to sit at the table and have a conversation. That's what Armin's so excited about, is that it's unbelievably lucky they're willing to sit there and communicate with us. And that's a big theme of this episode, is this idea of communication. Is communication and understanding. That's what Armin is so excited about. Because yeah, in this, we have an example of that. Yelena, I almost made that a T. Yelena and Onyonkopon came to the table to talk with them. And Armin's so excited by that he's like, this, and they're Marleyan, so he's like, this could be a chance for us to learn so much and to help our cause, right? And to figure out what's going on. And then Eren comes in, right? We've been really lucky. And they look back. And I want to make note that it is not lost on me that Eren, you have Sasha, Jean, and Connie, and Mikasa and Armin, 5 of our 6 of our main gang, all hunched together watching, and Eren is off by himself. Eren has excluded himself from the group. And he looks, his hair's growing out, it's not nearly as long. He's like, Eren, this is like Eren starting, like, in the year he turned 16, he started going through puberty. Because he's, like, gotten a little bit taller, a little bit bigger, and his hair's gotten longer, but he still looks similar to the Eren from season 3. He's starting to change more than the other group is. Yeah, we stopped their landing by pure chance. Ah, okay, we've been very lucky. So, interesting. So, according to Eren, I'm going to put Eren here. According to Eren, we find out that the scout ship was stopped by chance. By fate, if you will. So, yeah, that feels like fate. Like, it was just stopped by chance. Like, they just happened to get there and stop the ship. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they stopped the landing by pure chance. If Marley comes in force, we'll be screwed. So yeah, Eren's saying in that moment that if Marley decides to come and attack us, we won't be able to fight back. So to think of where Eren's headspace is, I'm going to put Eren's headspace over here. Eren is thinking that if Marley comes full force, he's not wrong. Yeah. They're screwed. Yep, he's not wrong. If they showed up and just came in, yeah, they'd be screwed. Wouldn't be able to do anything. They, 3 years ago did not have the technology or the knowledge. They don't even know what's going on in the outside world. If Marley just shows up to attack them, it's very fortunistic for them. It's very fortunate for parody that, basically, if you think about it, the whole thing with Shiga and Sheena, it bought them so much time. Because if Shiga and Sheena hadn't happened, it's kind of funny how this all comes full circle. Magath noted that the idea of them sending the kids was a bad idea. Military did it anyway. They're like, nah, we don't want to send the Warhammer, because the Warhammer won't go. We'll just send these kids as warrior candidates. The island, they're all ignorant. They don't know about the rest of the world. They're all secluded. We can send these 4 kids as Titan shifters, and they can go get the founding Titan, bring them back. No big deal. We'll talk more about the whole purpose of the pure Titans. That was a cool revelation. But they're like, it's fine. It won't be a big deal. And then the events of this series happen, and the fact that Armin's sacrifice and everything bought them time. It was the most fortunate thing that could happen to them because of what happened to Shiga and Sheena, because they won that battle, it caused Zeke and everybody to go back. It caused the other nations to realize that Marley was weakened and start that war with them. That war that was going on. So around the time that this happens, that's when the other wars are going on, right? That allows them to buy time. So it's funny how that all comes full circle. It's interesting. We've got to do something. Okay. And this sets up Eren's whole thing. We have to do something. Eren's like, we got to do something. Something has to happen. We can't just sit here and wait, because then they'll come full force and we're screwed. We don't have any way to defend ourselves. Okay. So it's interesting. I do not like the sight of Hanji looking down the barrel of a gun. That part freaked me out. I was like, Hanji, don't do that. But yeah, they've never seen weaponry like this, so they don't even know what it is. And Hanji's examining how it happens. Levi looks like he would rather be anywhere else. Levi's like, can we just stop? Levi's like, I hate it here. Right? But Hanji's too busy. This is like Hanji in a candy store. Hanji's like, just like, look at all these tricks and trinkets. And I like Yelena is like, well, it's standard. Like, everybody has these. And Hanji is so excited. So we established some numbers here, which are pretty damning. The Marley army has 20,000 soldiers per division. And Levi's just like, shit. With 50 divisions, that's 1,000,000 soldiers. So here's where we're at. I'm going to have to flip Whiteboard Kun over at some point. But so the Marley military has 1,000,000. The Marley military has 1,000,000. And says that the Navy with 3 fleets comprised of 21 battleships. So 3 fleets and 21 battleships. Just to show you how big this is. So 1,000,000 soldiers. That's a big army. That's a big army. And the thing of it is, we know that the military is not just 1,000,000 Marleyans. It's also a bunch of Eldians too. So interesting. But yeah, just putting to scope how big this army is. How big of a fight it's going to be. And she says they've made tremendous progress in new weapons and aerial warfare as well. And Hanji's like, I don't know what aerial means. Like, she questions, and then Levi like kicks her under the table and says, they're going to think we're weak if we act ignorant. And Hanji's like, but I want to know. And I love that look between the two of them. They're both giving each other the look in the eyes, like they know what they're saying. And then Onyon, though, he's kind. And he says they're vehicles allowing one to attack the enemy from the sky. And that's such an interesting thing. Like, Onyon, he's not condescending in saying that, but he's just trying to explain it to where they would understand. Because from Yelena and Onyon's perspective, they're both like, we're talking to people that have been stagnant in terms of technology for like over 100 years. Like, they have no clue what the rest of the world is up to. So they're trying to explain it, which is, it's very interesting. And Hanji's like, attack from the sky. And Levi's like, shut up. And Hanji's just, as a scientist, she's just amazed. Hanji's like, all this stuff exists and we have no clue about it. But then Hanji brings up a good point. If the Marley had such capabilities the whole time, why haven't they attacked in over a year? So basically, since Shiganshina, this was the first attack on Parity. Okay. And it was just a scout ship. It was just a ship to scope it out. It wasn't an attack. It was just to scope it out and see what was going on. So I'm assuming the government's like, hey, it's been a year. Go check up on Parity and see what's up. And that's what they did. And they went at night because that's when the Titans, if there had been Titans on the island, that would have been the opportune time to do it. And Yelena says there's 2 main reasons. One, the pure Titans being released here. And so, yeah, even with the latest weapons, they would hinder a land assault. So this is the crazy part about all of it. This is the crazy part, is that the pure Titans, we've been thinking of them as the enemy all along, seasons 1 through 3. They've actually been protecting Parity in the weirdest of ways. Because, yeah, it was like a double-edged sword, right? The government it was kind of like a gamble for them, because on the one hand, the pure Titans being released, we questioned this back in the recap and back earlier on this season. I was like, why would they release all of these pure Titans? You're just giving the founding Titan and Parity more weapons. But several of you pointed out that because the founding Titan was like renounced war, Tiber was willing to put the pure Titans there because, one, he knew the founding Titan wasn't going to war with them, so he was never going to use them. And 2, it was just, if they got into the walls by some chance, the founding Titan was not going to fight back, so it would just kill the people anyway. So it's kind of like a win-win for Willie. Willie's like, I know nothing's going to happen by us putting the pure Titans here, so let's just do it. But we also find out from this that they were used as a tool to keep the Eldians within the walls, to keep people from leaving. So it was basically, it was a multi-purpose thing. It kept Eldians within Parity's walls, and it was possibly a way for them to destroy Parity because the founding Titan wasn't going to stop them. And it was just an extra measure because they knew that it was just a means. And it was a means of Marley to put fear into the Eldians. Like, if you don't do what we tell you to, we'll turn you into a pure Titan and set you to paradise. So it had a 3-pronged purpose there. But there was one disadvantage to that. And the idea is that in doing those 3 things, the downfall is they've essentially protected Eldia from an invasion because they can't go on land and attack because the pure Titans are there. So Marley can't go and attack on land. They have to do an aerial assault. That's so neat. That's so crazy. I mean, obviously for Marley, the 3 benefits outweighs the 1 because they weren't seriously attacking them anyway. That's why they sent the warrior candidates in the first place, because they could withstand the Titans. So yeah, it was really a win-win for Marley in that case. That's just interesting now. There are no pure Titans, so it's like, welp, you're keeping it. And we're going to get back to that with the serum. But at the moment, it's like, well, there's no pure Titans left. So if Marley did want to launch an assault on land, your way of stopping them or creating a hurdle for them is essentially gone. So that's interesting. Yeah, very curious, right? And then I'm with Levi. Ain't that funny? Funny that, right? I'm with Levi in a lot of this episode, actually. It's great. And again, lanterns. Lanterns everywhere. There are lanterns all across this episode. There are torches. There are lanterns. The idea of light being a source of knowledge being shared. Make note, in the scene with Eren at the end, there is no light. There is none. He's in the darkness. There's light with Armin, with the torches. There's the fading sunset with Mikasa, and we will get back to that and talk about that with Eren. And with Eren's case, when he's like standing sexily in front of the mirror, there is no light. He is in darkness. Symbolism, y'all. It's there. It's there. We'll get to it. But yeah, though, and then this is when Yelena says that dawn's coming soon, and that's when Titans are active. But if we're way out here sipping on tea outside the walls, then that means you've killed all the Titans roaming around. And is that true? And then Hanji's like, shit, they figured it out. She's like, we've been bamboozled. And I like Levi is saying, okay, well, what if it is? What if we did kill the Titans? You gonna report it to Marley? But no. Yelena's face, she's like, no, it blows away my expectations. Because again, it's proving that the people of parody are capable of doing what no other people have been able to do. It's suggesting, because yeah, if you think about back to episode 1 of this season, back in episode 1, the Mideast forces and everybody, they were terrified of the pure Titans. It was like the ultimate, hellfire was them raining down those pure Titans as bombs. And the people of the Mideastern forces were terrified because they had no defense against that. And the people of parody, against all odds, have over the course of 100 years found a way to fight back. It's like they will, if you build it, they will come sort of scenario. It's the idea that, It's the idea that, in face of adversity, in order to survive, they did what they had to do. And they figured out how to kill the Titans. So, curious. Now, again, the blades and everything are made out of mysterious metal that can destroy the Titans. So, again, who made the first blade and where did that come from? Maybe we'll figure that out. Don't spoil me. I'm curious to know if we'll ever get confirmation of that. But the point is, Yelena's realized that these people of parody are tough and that they're able to fight a Titan. And that's huge, right? That could help. She sees the value of parody in trying to accomplish their goals. She's like, we could maybe free Eldia from Marley with y'all because you guys can fight Titans. Yeah. Yelena's an interesting character. And then Hanji asks, what's the second reason? And then Yelena's like, well, we're currently at war with multiple nations, so they don't have time for parody. They don't think parody is a threat. Again, they underestimate parody, and Yelena's like, you guys exceed my expectations. I didn't think that it was going to be, that you guys were going to be this much of a threat, but here we are, and you are. So, yeah, Yelena says, you defeated the warrior unit, the Pride of Marley, and captured 2 of their main weapons, the colossal and female Titans. Marley's many enemies took notice and were quick to unite and declare war. Yep, they were like, strike them while they're down, get them while they're down, which is not unlike what Eren has just done in these last few episodes. Get them while they're weak. And I'm sure Eren is thinking like, okay, we have the advantage. They're in a weakened position. We need to attack now if we're going to beat them because they're in disarray, kind of like what these other nations were doing in that case too. But again, the other nations thought the same thing that Eren thought. They're like, okay, Marley's weak. Let's attack them. That's kind of where Eren's mindset is right now. But we've seen from the first couple episodes that just because they seem weakened doesn't mean that they can't win. Like, they figured out a way to come together and do it before. Now, granted, they had, you know, the Beast Titan, the Carton Jaw, the Armored Titan. They had all 4 of them, right? And the Hammer Titan was in the wings. Now, they literally just have 3. So they've been knocked down a peg, but technically the only one that they're missing is the Beast Titan. There's still the other 3 of them. So it's not impossible to say that Marley and them can't come back and be a threat. But it's interesting that Eren's idea, his attack, is basically mirroring what the other nations did after Shiga and Sheena, right? And so then Hanji says, if you guys are secret agents who infiltrated Marley, then I'm guessing you came from conquered nations. Suggesting she's like, oh, well, you guys must have been just prisoners of war from other nations, right? And the way that they both stare at her, the way that they both stare at Hanji, like, oh, you really don't know. Like, you really don't get how this works. Like, just that look on their face, they both just have this look of utter just, and Yelena's eyes are so black sometimes that they just don't have any, like, emotion. That's why it's kind of another thing that makes you not want to trust her, is because there's no, like, light in her eyes. Like, with Onyon, there's, like, even when he seems disturbed, there's a glimmer. With her eyes, no, there's no light there. It's interesting. And then Hanji's like, oh, well, I'm right. So if you're going back up against Marley, I bet you've got big backers. Saying that, oh, if you guys are fighting against Marley, that must mean that you have other nations backing you up. So we could ally ourselves with them, right? Hanji's thinking of all the possibilities. But that's when Yelena puts down the T. And she's like, okay, wait. We're not secret agents or anything of the sort. We were powerless. Marley took our homes and forced us to become soldiers. So yeah. And then the idea is, when Yelena looks up, I love this. We were close to losing hope at ever striking back until we met him. And oh man, and that image of, so basically Yelena and Onyon had been taken from their homes and forced to join the military of Marley, forced to become Marleyan soldiers, and they'd lost all hope of ever getting back their home or anything like that. And then they saw the Beast Titan. A titan that people the world feared, calling it a devil. But I saw something completely different. Yeah. And that look on her face, like, just, she's seen an angel. Like, it's a god, one that gave hope to the powerless. Ooh, yep, okay. Okay. So Yelena views Zeke, and possibly in turn Eren, as a god giving hope to the powerless. Yeah, because really, if you think about it, Zeke and the Titan, the warriors, represent a marginalized group that have no power, but despite all that, they're given these God-given abilities that, and we'll tie that back with Onyon and his beliefs, this God-given ability to allow them to be a beacon of hope for those like, oh, I could have, just because I seem powerless doesn't mean that we are, because you're able to do this. So it's fascinating. I love it. It makes sense. And she just looks so, like, elated. Like, she's just in ecstasy. And she says, under Zeke Yeager's command, we shot our superiors. He told us to do it. We're the anti-Marleyan volunteers, and our goal is to free the Eldian people, and I need to flip this over because I didn't plan this right. Okay. I did not organize Whiteboard Coon very well on the first side, so let's try this 2.0. So we have the anti-Marleyan volunteers. The brave volunteers. Okay. AMV. We have that. So we have Yelena and Onyonkopon. All right. And so the idea is their goal is to free the Eldian people. Which, here's the thing. So this kind of ties to, I'm curious, we haven't gotten this yet, but when we had the new Eldian Empire. Because at some point over the last 3 years, this has become a thing. The last 3 years has started this, right? And a lot of people in parody seem to be on board with this idea. But it's not too different from the Restorationists. It's not too different, right? Am I taking crazy pills? Because I thought the Restorationists' whole thing was to free the Eldian people from Marley. And I thought that in order to do that, they wanted to take back... That's why I don't trust Zeke, okay? That's why I don't trust Zeke. Because Zeke, there's still so much about him. He's going to go up here. Old Zeke. He will never not be suspicious until I know his motivations. And we don't know that yet. That's the problem, is that we've only gotten little bits and pieces of how people think of Zeke. We've seen Zeke's childhood. We've seen how Grisha tried to put his beliefs onto Zeke, and Zeke as a kid freaked out and turned him in to keep his grandparents safe. We've seen that. We've seen Zeke becomes the Beast Titan. But I've always been conflicted with that because I'm like, why did Zeke even become the Beast Titan in the first place? I get maybe to protect his grandparents, but so Zeke knows, I didn't mention this earlier, but rewatching episode 8, Zeke knows he is royalty. My question is, how? How does he know this? In the flashback, I don't think that Grisha, I don't believe that Grisha told him, or I don't think Grisha told him because he was keeping that a secret, or maybe he did, but Zeke didn't reveal that to the government. So I feel like someone that is not Grisha told Zeke about his royal lineage. Because if Zeke had known he was royalty when he turned Grisha and Dinah in, I would think that as a kid, he would speak up about that. He'd be like, oh, they wanted me to become a Titan warrior because I'm of royal blood. Like, I figured he would say that to them, and then they would have known about Dinah, and they wouldn't have turned her into a Titan to begin with. But he didn't say that to them. And so that makes me think that Grisha never told him that he was royalty. Him and Dinah just told him he was special, and the Restorationists were going to use him to go get the founding Titan. And then, because that's been their whole goal. The Restorationists were the Eldians of Marley, right? That were going to take the founding Titan and destroy parody, right? In the process, and free their people from Marley. So this is like a warped, twisted version of that. Like, the only thing that's different is that at the moment, they don't seem like they want to destroy parody. But again, I don't trust Zeke. And I don't trust Yelena. I like Yelena's character a lot. I don't trust her. So my question is, with him, is he going to eventually fight parody? Or the question is parody going to be involved as an Eldian society? Or involve them as Eldians? When they say free the Eldian people, the anti-Marleyan war volunteers, when they say free the Eldian people, is parody included in that? That's the big question. Because the Restorationist logic was no, they weren't included. It was just the Eldians of Marley. They still viewed parody as traitors. They weren't the true Eldians, right? But they were basically, the Restorationists were kind of going along a little bit with the Marleyan ideology that the parody Eldians were bad, but they were just like, we're going to save ourselves. We're going to basically do what parody did to us. We're going to take the founding Titan and we're going to free ourselves and let parody suffer and screw them. We're just going to save ourselves from Marley and be free. This doesn't seem that different. The only difference is we don't know if Eldia to the anti-Marleyan volunteers includes parody or not. We don't know that. My fear is that it does not include them. My fear is that Zeke is going to try to get the founding Titan or convince Eren to leave parody and be like, look, this island here isn't worth it. You need to come and free the bigger people. Like, that's my fear, is that Zeke is going to try to lure Eren over and be like, well, forget parody. You need to come with us. We need to go back to Marley. And if parody collapses and whatevs. I don't think that's... There's part of me that doubts that, but there's part of me that thinks that could be something to it. There's a lot going on here, right? Oh my gosh. Okay. Yep, to free the Eldian people. And then we cut to the sun setting. So we go to, that concludes Zeke Yeager's request. So we go back to this. This scene is, oh God, I love this scene in the courtroom. I've been waiting for this. And Eren's grown his hair. He's still, again, Eren in this scene, they all have the bolos. Eren in the scene, it's been a year. So okay, we're going to talk about, I'm going to put Eren over here in a corner. All right. So Eren spent 1 year before he talked about Dinah, the Dinah reveal. So Eren spent a year not saying anything about Dinah. And it's funny because the way that they draw Eren in this, he looks very much like season 3 Eren, only his hair is longer. And again, they've got him like in mid-puberty. It's kind of cool. But yeah, for the sake of all Eldians whose existence is threatened. And that's when she gets interrupted. For the sake of all Eldians whose existence is threatened. So it seems like parody is included. Okay. For now. It's what it seems like. Okay? Seems like parody's included. The way that he words that. And then, yeah, the one guy's like, I don't even want to hear this. No. And then somebody's like, he's the Beast Titan. And I'm glad they bring this up. These are things I talked about in the last episode. He turned the people of Ragako into Titans and incited a panic. Yes. So, yeah, he turned Connie's village into Titans. He started a big old mess. And Connie looking down there like, I was wondering how Connie would handle the Beast Titan being on board the ship. But all the stuff with Sasha was going on, so he clearly was in shock and didn't have time. We didn't have time to go through it. So what we don't know is this is 3 years ago. So what we don't know at this point is the events of over the last 3 years. I'm going to put this over here. We don't know what has all been going on over the last... We get the seedlings planted in this episode for what we think could have been happening over the last 3 years. We get the seedlings of it, right? So over the last 3 years, we aren't sure about Zeke's connection with Eren, all right? Because that still hasn't been explained, okay? Zeke has to have talked to Eren at some point over the last 3 years. We haven't seen that yet. That's a mystery still. But yeah, poor Connie. Connie's just like, you're bringing up my family? Yeah, because yeah, Zeke did turn them all into Titans. And then Flock's sitting here with his porcupine hair still. It's starting to grow out a little bit. It's still porcupine-ish. And he actually looks kind of like sad about this. And then Sasha looks... Yeah, and he's the same person who nearly annihilated the scouts. Yeah, again, Zeke, they killed hundreds of scouts and turned Connie's village into Titans. Zeke does not seem trustworthy at all. So, trust. At the start of this, it's like, this guy nearly wiped us out, and he's saying he wants to help us now? What's the deal, right? And so, yeah, and then Zachary says his one and only goal is to retake the founding Titan. That's how it's been the last 3 seasons, right? And then, since he can't do it by force, he'll attempt it diplomatically. Zachary is not wrong. And I like that he brings this up. He's like, okay, Zeke tried to take Eren by force. Didn't work. They tried it twice. Didn't work. So Zachary is suggesting, okay, well, now that part didn't work, he's trying to do it diplomatically. He's like, okay, since they couldn't take it by force, they're sending these scouts to try to offer a peace treaty with us. But their goal is still the same. They're still trying to take the founding Titan. It's just they're trying to do it through a political means rather than through military, through force. And I'm kind of with Zachary a little bit. But then Pixis says he should know we'll expect that. Let's hear what he has to say. Pixis is like, my curiosity is piqued. I want to know. Pixis is saying that Zeke is smart. He will have guessed that we're suggesting that. So we might as well just hear everything he has to say and see what else, if there's anything else to it. Pixis, you may have doomed us all. So again, and it goes back to episode 11. I just watched the episode, and it's Pixis and Eren. They're connected back in episode 11 of season 1. they're connected in this too. The idea of Pixis listening. So I'm going to put Pixis over here. But then this ties the whole idea of communication and understanding. I'm going to put a little note here about, again, communication and understanding. Because they could have just said no in that moment and it would have been done. But Pixis wants to hear Zeke out. So that's important. I think that makes all the difference, because if they never heard the rest of Zeke's request, it wouldn't have gotten Eren on board. So for better or worse, Pixis, you have caused this madness. So yeah. And Pixis is like, let's at least just hear what the rest of the request is. According to Zeke, he has a secret plan to solve the Eldian issue. Funny that you have Zeke with the plan. And you also had Willie with the plan. Right? Right? So Willie's plan, you had Willie's plan to destroy Parody. Eh? And then is Zeke's plan to save Parody? I put a big question mark there. Right? Because Willie's whole plan to do the big reveal, the secret plan was basically to destroy Parody, to make Parody look like monsters and then get the world against Parody. And then Zeke's secret plan is supposedly he says to solve the Eldian issue. That's a big note there. Solve the Eldian issue. Is Zeke a suicidal maniac like Eren? We don't know. To solve the Eldian issue. Okay. And then to carry it out, it requires the founding titan and a titan with royal blood. And so, God, Zeke's playing Eren. Yeah. Zeke and Eren have come to the same conclusion. Which it makes sense. Here's the thing. The question is, somebody has gave Zeke information about the royal family. Someone has. I don't think it was his mother. I don't think so, because he was so young. I think somebody from the inside has told Zeke about... Zeke has somehow learned the secrets that you need a royal family member to make the Founding Titans' true power work. Because I've noted this in other reactions. It seems like... Okay. Well, but... Okay, I'm trying to think about this. Zeke, if he wants to destroy Marley, maybe Zeke has realized the same thing that Willie realized too. Zeke and Willie both realized that, oh crap, the Founding Titan is no longer with someone of royal blood, which means the Founding Titan's vow is no longer in effect, which means that if that power is activated, then the rumbling could happen. And Eren knows it's called the rumbling too, which is interesting that Eren already knows what it's called. Okay. So Eren, I'm going to put like a little note here that Eren knows about the rumbling, which he could have learned, again, from Grisha's memories. He could have gone back to Grisha when he was listening to his father and heard about the rumbling from him. So that's not a surprise, I guess. But, so Zeke and Willie both realized that Eren did not have royal blood and he was the Founding Titan. So Willie's whole thing was, well, crud. Yeah, he can't activate the powers within the walls, but he could still be a big threat. So this is our chance to get rid of Parody now. We should get rid of Parody now because the Founding Titan's not a threat at the moment. The full power can't be activated. So while the Founding Titan is not a threat, let's get rid of Parody now. Zeke's thoughts were, okay, well, the Founding Titan, the vow of anti-war is off. So Zeke knew somehow that if you had a Titan with royal blood and it worked with the Founding Titan, that the rumbling could happen. So he's like, let's do that. So he's like, okay, let's do that. We can destroy Marley and free our people. So maybe Zeke saw it as an opportunity for it to work out. Maybe. Well, we're going to come back to that theory, though. All right. But basically, Zeke and Eren's been stewing the last year on the same thought, and Zeke has figured it out too. So that moment where Hanji is like, where she talks about the royal blood, Eren's just like, And he says, with both, the world can be saved. All right. I like that. With both, the world can be saved. Well, define saved. Because the whole rumbling thing does not sound like it's saving the world. It sounds like it's destroying the world. So who is the world you're saving, right? But that's what Eren wants to hear. Eren's like, oh, I've been thinking on that same thing. So yeah, in that moment, Eren like has an epiphany and his eyes like glimmer. And he says, he will only reveal the plan when his conditions are met. Okay, so he has this secret plan, but he's not going to reveal it until his conditions are met. So Zeke will reveal the plan when conditions met. Which I'm assuming is where we're at now, right? I'm assuming we're at the point where conditions have been met. So we're about to find out this big old plan. I'm terrified because I think that it's going to be like, let's destroy the world is what I think is going to happen. And I don't like that. But again, this is a really good callback. I said in the reaction to when Armin looks over to Eren and sees Eren's face. Armin, it's paralleling that moment at the end of season 3 when Armin looked over a year prior and saw Eren freaking out. It's paralleling that, and Armin sees that Eren's like, oh, like that glimmer. And this one guy's like, bullshit, we're not idiots. And that's when Eren stands up and he says, I'm telling the truth. I remember. And that's when he reveals the thing about Dinah. He reveals the only time I was able to use the Founding Titan's power was when I touched a Titan with royal blood. And that's when he reveals to all of them the Titan had been my father's other wife, Dinah Fritz. And that Zeke, their son, must have figured out a way to elude the vow renouncing war. So that's interesting too. Yeah, Zeke has figured out a way to elude the vow renouncing war. Okay. Well, the way of eluding that is that Zeke doesn't become the Founding Titan. That's the way that he eludes it. He's just going to work with Eren. That's how they make it work. Zeke's like, okay, I don't want to become it makes sense. Zeke's like, I can't become the Founding Titan because if I do, the vow is going to kick back into effect. Can't do that. But if I work with you, Eren, then we can make this work and the vow won't take effect and we can do whatever we want. That's the scary thing, right? And Zeke is becoming impatient to use it because Zeke's probably figured this out and been like, shit, I've only got 3 years left to do this. Or he's like, I got 4 years left for this to work because in the present time, he has 1 year left. He's like, I got 4 years for us to make this work or there's no chance because your only other person on the board that has royal blood is Historia. So, yeah, that's probably why Zeke's... The curious thing about this, though, is the thing that is odd is that Zeke, after Shiganshina, had a whole year to reflect and figure out... Zeke had a year to reflect on what was going on. And my question is, did Zeke figure out... Did he sit there and think about all of this and realize... Wait, if Eren and I work together, we could use the Founding Titan powers without the vow taking effect. And he started to realize that maybe there was a chance that Eldia could become free, and he's going off of that. Or is this an elaborate trap? I don't know. But yeah, yep. So Eren says the one single hope remains for us Eldians. To wake the millions of Titans sleeping in the wall and activate the rumbling. So to Eren, the rumbling, activating the million Titans is the only hope. The only hope to survive. Eren's whole thing is the only way we are going to survive Marley's attack, the only way we're going to survive the world's attack is if we awaken all these millions of Titans and use them. That is what Eren believes. He thinks that's the only chance they have at victory. That he's looked beyond the walls and he's seen just how many other forces are waiting to put them in more cages. And he's like, well, we'll just destroy all their cages. and then there won't be any. And it's like, but again, there's a fault with that because it goes back to Willie. Willie was saying that whenever they ran out of enemies, they just started fighting amongst themselves. So I'm like, Eren, if you activate this rumbling and destroy the rest of the world, and it's just the Eldians, there's still going to be conflict, and it's not going to solve the problem. Are you going to be free? Is it worth the cost? Yep, but we'll talk about that. But he knows what the rumbling is, so clearly Grisha's memories have told him. And then we go back to that wall, the wall as the metaphor. Uh-huh. And then I love this. Levi is like, why did you keep quiet about this for all this time? And Levi's like, why have you been quiet? And this is the thing. Eren was concerned for Historia's safety. Concerned for Historia. My ship leads. It keeps on going. And in that moment, Historia's like, oh. He says, I couldn't let her get made into a Titan based on a hunch. And I do like that about Eren. I do like that Eren's like, I didn't want her to get made into a Titan. Like, here's the thing. Flock noted in that episode, Flock's like, you believe that you're in the right. So I don't think it was just a hunch. I think Eren did fully believe that he was correct, but he didn't want her to get made into a Titan. After everything they went through back at Sin and Wish, he was like, no, I didn't want her to get made into a Titan. In that moment, she was like, oh, you were protecting me with this knowledge. And he said, it was careless of me. Uh-huh. And I love Levi's response. Eren's like, yeah, it was careless that I didn't say anything. And Levi's response is, we'll talk about it later. That's such a parental thing to say. He's like, we're with the adults right now, but when we get home, we're going to have a talk about this. Like, that's Levi is being such a dad figure there. He's like, when we get home, Eren, we're going to have words. But yeah, his concern for Historia. I still ship them. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people ship Eren and Mikasa, and some of you pointed out Eren and Armin as a ship. We'll talk about in the recap, but I still ship Eren and Historia. I really do, especially because Eren was concerned for her. She's like the one person that Eren vocally is like, I was concerned for her. And I'm like, Mikasa's like, am I chopped liver over here? It's just how I feel. And then Hanji says, but if that's really true, then Zeke's secret plan holds up. So, I mean, Hanji's looking at this logically, like, okay, makes sense. And then Niall is like, are you nuts? You trust them? And Pix is just not saying anything. Yeah, we can't have all those soldiers on the island. And yeah, everybody's visibly angry. There's a lot of military police visibly angry at all of this. You can see them. Yeah, we ought to hang them all. And that's Flock mentality too. Flock's like, just throw them off the airship. Hang them all. Mm-hmm. And then Hanji's like, we can't do that. You don't get it. To protect the island from Marley scout ships, we need the volunteers. So that's the thing. Zeke has put them in a tough position too, because the volunteers are going to lure the other Marley ships, right? Hanji's like, you don't get it. We've captured one of their ships. They have a whole bunch more. If we don't use their help, they're going to send the rest of the ships, and eventually we're going to be in trouble. So we need to use them. We can't just hang them all. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. This is all going back to Uri's thing about the violence and everything. She says, without their wireless radio. Yep. On the ship. And then Yelena calls them to request aid. Mm-hmm. This is the first scout fleet. And then it goes back to all those ships coming ashore. And then Armin as the Colossal Titan just showing up to wreck everything. And Yelena has that, she's such a snake. Again, I don't trust her. Because that moment where she has the mouth on the microphone and she's like, what a relief. Our ship ran aground. We've been waiting for your help. Like, she just looks like such a snake. I was like, I don't trust her. I don't trust Yelena or Zeke. Nope. And then, yep, they come into the cove. And then two are headed our way. Yep. And then they have the ship positioned there. It's like, so it's within radio signal. And they're like, are you okay? We're coming to get you. And that's when the Colossal Titan shows up. Yep. And Armin. Mm-hmm. It's the enemy. Hurry up and jump. And God, that shot is very creepy of the Colossal Titan, its arms and everything. It's a very weird, grisly shot. Some of you were commenting that some of the prototypes for the animation, but it's not complete. No, if you look at Armin there, the ribs and everything are not complete. They're skeletal. Like, he's only had the Colossal Titan powers for a year, so he's still not used to them. So it's not whole. It's kind of like Nightmare Fuel Titan. Interesting. Wow, okay. And then Levi with the gun. Welcome to the filthy island of filthy devils. You're gonna love it. Levi is my favorite in this episode because he is having none of this. He's done. Levi's like, no. This was 3 years ago at this point in the episode. So he's like, no, as long as you like pig piss, you're going to be just fine. Oh my God. You can leave if you want, but you're swimming back. Oh my God. So yeah, they basically just took him hostage. And then, yeah, and you can see that the Colossal Titan, it's very skeletal, like the collarbone and everything's exposed in more detail. It doesn't look complete. Like Armin hasn't had a long time with it. And then we come back to him in the shell. And Armin says, certainly we Eldians are feared and hated by the world. And he grips it tighter. He gets tighter about people across the sea whose faces we don't know. I love this shot of him. Like, Armin looks so much older in these shots, and he's so handsome. I love it. But not everyone across the sea was our enemy. And this is a big thing. So we have Eren on one side over here. And we have Armin on the other side. I'm going to put Armin right here. So Armin recognizes that they have enemies across the sea. Like, he's not naive. Armin's like, no, we're hated by the world. We have enemies everywhere. But not everyone's an enemy. That's the thing. That is the big distinction, I think, between Eren and Armin. That is the biggest difference, is that Armin is like, yes, we have enemies everywhere, but not everyone is an enemy. There's a big distinction there. And that's so good. And so then we cut back to Onyon. And this shot of Jean's like, like Jean looks like so crafty and foxy, and Connie's like, I don't get it. And Sasha's like, I just want to eat the map. Right? We found out the world itself was complex and full of unknowns. And Jean looks so excited by that. And then you have Jean like looking at the map and him and Connie arguing about something. Armin and Mikasa look like they just don't understand, and Sasha's just drooling. And Hanji's so excited by something, and Onyon's like, okay, sure. And then I love this next scene because Onyon's so like kind and compassionate. And then of course Sasha asks, our country bumpkin asks, by the way, why do you have dark skin, Onyonkopon? She's like, why do you look different? And this shot, I love this. If you go back and look at the shot of Onyon, when Sasha asks him why he has dark skin, there's a lantern behind him. Like, this is a moment for knowledge to be gained, right? And every time that there's like a moment where knowledge is present, or there's a light or beacon of hope or something there, then that lantern is on. And with Onyon, I love this part. This may be one of my favorite parts of the episode. He looks so sly. He has like a Jean expression. He looks so sly there too. He's like, because our creator thought it's more interesting with a mix of people. I love that. And then he says, subjects of Ymir are the same. We exist because we were wanted. And this Armin, the glow in his eyes, the gleam. He's like, you're all different because that's the way that the creator wanted us. And Armin, this question, who created us? That's such an insane thing. I hadn't thought about that until this point in the episode. But really, the only religion that has been introduced in parody has been the wall religion. Like the religion that the Titans are gods, and that the walls are like godlike constructions. That's been it. And that the royal family are like gods. That's been their religion. But not everybody in parody is privy to the idea, is privy to the wall cult, or privy to the royal family being gods. So Armin being like, well, who created us? Like, because I guess with the wall cult and with the royal family, it was never a question of that the royal family created the people of parody. It's just that they were ruling over them. That was it. They were just like, oh, well, the walls are a construct created by, created by a divine presence, and they're there to protect us, and that's why we should worship them. Or the royal family has this divine power of the Titans, that's why we should worship them. But there was never in the story up until this point the question of another being or power creating themselves. And then Armin's like, well, then who created us? And I love Anyon's response. He says at first, the one who gave the founder Ymir power, God. And that's so interesting because you have Onyon saying it was God that gave Ymir power, and you have the Marleyan government saying it was the devil that gave Ymir power. So which is it, right? So which is it? Here's the thing with Ymir. Was it God or the devil? Right? That's been like probably the biggest mystery in this so far is about Ymir Fritz. And I know that at some point we're going to get into that discussion, but that's been the biggest mystery so far is that they've set up the idea of, anyone can be a god or a devil. It just depends on how many people believe it. And it ties to this, who gave Ymir Fritz the power? Was it the devil of all earth or was it God? Onyon says it's God that gave her the power. And Grisha Jaeger, back with the Restorationists, said that it was a God-given gift that Ymir had, that she was given this gift to be benevolent to the people. So, what do we do with that? But then I like that he starts to get a little preachy with it, where he's like, the one who gave Ymir power, God. But then he stops himself. And I love this addition. He says, that's what some people believe. Aren't we free to think what we want? And that gets Armin's attention, the idea of freedom. The idea of our freedom of will. And he learned that from a Marleyan. That's what some people believe, but aren't we free to think what we want? That's so good. So good. And then we see like the little port and everything. They have the shells and the lobster and the seafood. They've never seen this seafood before. Notice that Eren is not with them. Eren is not with them in this scene. That upon seeing this image now, that becomes abundantly clear that Eren is not with them. He's off by himself. And I don't like that because it makes me think that is something that happened often in that year, is that Eren was constantly by himself, like stewing over in Grisha's memories. Like that's concerning because you have our Chaos Trio and then you have Armin and Mikasa with them and you have Yelena and Nicolo. And of course, Yelena's like, Nicolo's a master of Marley cooking. And he's like, you jerks, if you don't like it, don't eat it. Eldians like you. And so Nicolo is suggesting that Eldians, like the people of Parody, wouldn't understand the fine tastes of this lobster and stuff. But Sasha has come to prove you wrong. And she just yanks it out of the shell, just eats it whole, and just starts tearing apart the lobsters. And they're like, save some for us. And she's like, it's amazing. God, I love this. She's like, Nicolo, you're a food genius. And in that moment when he has the blush, I was like, oh, well, we'll talk about this in the recap, but I get what you all were saying now. Several of you, I'd been shipping Connie and Sasha in the recap. I was like, I ship Connie and Sasha. And several of you were like, oh, I really see Connie and Sasha more as like brother and sister. We'll get back to that later on at the grave site scene. But the moment that he blushed and looked at her, I went, oh, Nicolo and Sasha. It's Nicolo and Sasha. Nicolo liked her. Okay, and I think that Connie knew that. Okay. Yep, all makes sense now. And he's like, stop eating like a pig. And she's like, I've never had anything like this. And she's just crying. And he's like, oh, thanks. There's plenty, so take your time. But he loved that she loved his cooking. And there's that moment where he just blushes. That's so sweet. That's so sweet. And now I'm heartbroken because but we're going to go back to him. Nicolo being a good guy and just loving Sasha for loving his cooking. My heart. There better be some Nicolo Sasha fan fictions out there. That's all I can say. There better be. But again, Eren was not present in that scene with the cooking. He wasn't present because in that moment there was a connection, right? In that moment, Sasha and Nicolo connected. Two people that were from two opposite sides of the line. Nicolo, a Marleyan, and Sasha, an Eldian. And they bonded over something as simple as food. And it was so pure, that connection. And what do? Eren's not in that scene. we cut from that scene where we're connecting Eldians and Marleyans together. We cut to Eren shooting a glass. Like that we cut from something that is a moment of communication and understanding to an act of violence. God, Isayama, you're a genius. And yeah, Eren is off practicing. And of course, Mikasa and Armin show up to talk to him, and they're like, the port will be finished soon. And again, this is showing that Eren is not only practicing like with swordsmanship and being a Titan, but he's practicing his shot, which is scary that Eren's practicing other means of like assault. Not just becoming a Titan or fighting Titans, but he's practicing with a gun, meaning that he's anticipating fighting people. And they say, thanks to the Marleyan engineers, building it has been quick. And Mikasa says they sure have been cooperative. So, Armin makes note that Mikasa and Armin both note how Marley has cooperated to make the port. So there is a port there. Again, the new port. Again, if we tie to Zeke being slightly untrustworthy, I'm like, okay, because here's the thing, right? So Zeke could not have revealed back in episode 3 or 4, y'all were commenting about Porco that when the Marleyan official asked Reiner to go over details about parity, and Reiner was saying, well, the port's probably been destroyed. We don't know if it has been or not, but if it has been, then we aren't going to be able to dock there. All of our ships have gone missing, so we can assume the port's been destroyed. And then the officer got frustrated. But in that moment, Zeke never corrected him. Zeke probably knows that the port's fine, that it's been corrected and it's been fixed. So again, because the port's been fixed, that would allow Marley to go over and attack parity. It would let them get there since the port's been fixed and the Marleyans fixed it. So there's that unsettling doubt, right? There's that doubt creeping in there. But yeah, Mikasa says they sure have been cooperative. And then Armin, I like that Armin has to cover his ears when Eren fires. And it went bad. And then Armin says it went bad at first since neither side trusted each other. There wasn't that trust, right? But given enough time, if we set aside our labels and see each other as people. That's the thing. That goes back to season 3, episode 4, which was called Trust, which was about the military police. It was funny because it was like a small scale version of this. In that episode, in the episode called Trust, it was about Marlowe and Hitch being trusted by Levi and them because they took a gamble. Levi and the squad took a gamble trusting Marlowe and Hitch because it could have gone poorly. That was like a trial run of this episode because they trusted Marlowe and Hitch, and Marlowe and Hitch could have turned them in, and that would have been that, but they didn't. That trust paid off. And so Armin is saying that if we set aside labels and see each other as people, that trust. And there's this visual here of Hanji and Armin being welcoming and having the tea, and then you have these two Marleyan soldiers that are like, they just look like you're really trying to be nice and give us the tea, but they are. And then the other people in the room are watching, like the people that are with Yelena are watching. Yeah, and then they show the little train. Again, midnight train! Again, we're just symbolism everywhere. Yep, if we do that, and it shows them like looking at the trains, and they've never seen a train before, so they didn't know Hanji and Armin didn't know what a train was. So they're learning about that. If we set aside our labels and see each other as people, we can understand each other. And those guys, the Marleyan guys, and Onyon and them like finding it fascinating and finding it amusing that Hanji and Armin are so excited about the train because they don't know what it is, right? So then we can understand each other. Yeah. This is like, it's sing it, you're preaching to the choir. Yep. You can understand each other. Yeah, that's the point. The whole point is that in this case, this is basically doing what Uri was talking about with Kenny. When Uri was in a position of power, he was able to talk to Kenny, and they were able to understand each other because Uri put everything out there being like, yeah, I know I've done awful things to your family, but I want to bridge something and make right by it, and maybe we can come to an understanding. And Kenny was receptive, and that's the only way it worked. And in this case, Armin and Hanji and the Survey Corps, they have the power in this situation. The Marley guys can't do anything. They're kind of at Hanji and them's mercy. And instead of being violent and hanging them like the military police wanted them to do, they talked to one another and built this rapport and this sympathy towards one another and this relationship. It's like everything that I've been preaching in this. And then we cut to Eren, who looks so doubtful. And Eren just stares at them, holding the gun, and says, and he cuts back, and all he can say in response to that is, Armin, have you seen Bertolt's memories? And so here's the curious thing about this. Here's the curious thing about Armin. He has seen Bertolt's memories. I was wondering about this a few episodes ago, especially when we got Reiner's backstory back in episode 3. I was wondering about this. I was like, he's got Bertolt's memories. He can see what Bertolt has seen. And I'm curious because he made the comment in the last 2 episodes ago where he's like, are these the sights that you've seen, Bertolt? Armin says, yeah, but there's nothing that seems helpful. I wonder what that means. I'm like, what have you seen that's not helpful? I feel like lots of things Bertolt has seen would be helpful. So I'm like, either Armin's lying or he just hasn't tapped into those memories enough. Or he hasn't gotten deep enough into those memories. Maybe that's the case, right? Maybe that's it. Maybe. I don't know. Because Eren learned a lot from Grisha. He's tapped into a lot of memories and learned lots of things. But Armin, I would think that he would have learned something. So that one part there is curious to me. That he's not tapped into a lot. I'm curious if later on in this series, Armin will tap into some memories from Bertolt and it'll be a thing. Or if over the 3 years since this conversation, because this conversation is taking place in the past 3 years ago, if in the next 3 years Armin does tap into those memories during those 3 years and we just haven't seen it yet. That's what I'm wondering. Nothing that seems helpful. And then, he says nothing that seems helpful. And then Eren says there's not much time. Zeke has less than 3 years left. Which, this was 3 years ago, and it's established that Zeke has a year left, so maybe the timeline's a little wonky there, or this is getting closer to being, maybe it's been closer to now, it's like 2 years ago instead of 3 years ago. Okay, but yeah, Eren is aware that they're on a timeline. On a timeline for the plan to work. Okay. So in Eren's mind, we just had this great conversation about the whole theme of the show. You weren't paying attention. You were shooting a gun, not paying attention, and only thinking about your objective. But, yeah. So Eren's like, okay, we only have 3 years, because basically he doesn't want Historia to become a Titan. So in order to enact this plan, if we're gonna defeat Marley the way that Eren thinks that we have to defeat them, then we're on a time clock. And now we are definitely on a time clock because we only have less than 1 year left to do this. Right? But he doesn't comment on, and then they say, yeah, about that. Do you really want to go along with Yelena's plan? And I think it's curious, we have the coffee can up there that they're shooting. So yeah, Armin and Mikasa question Eren. Do we really want to go along with this plan? Because Yelena's plan, this whole thing with the restorationists, kind of flies in the face of everything that Armin has just been talking about, right? Armin's just been talking about like this peaceful coexistence with other people, and Yelena's talking about let's wipe them out. So I like that Mikasa and Armin actually question Eren about this. They actually question him. Yeah, and then Eren's like, well, what's the problem? Is using the rumbling to threaten the world the only way to protect the Eldians? That's the question. That's the question. Is there only one option? The answer is no. The answer to that question is no. It's a rhetorical question because we've just seen that there's another option, right? No, but Eren doesn't believe that. No, Eren doesn't believe that at all. And so then we will be the devils that terrorize the world. Yeah, Armin's like, we're figuring out that if we can, if we can talk with people and use the power of the Titans, and it gets complicated, right? Because Armin is very idealistic, and this is a very idealistic thing. I realize that. I'm with it, but I know it's idealistic because here's the problem. If you wanted to be in a position of power, okay, sure, then you could use the Titan powers as a threat, I guess. But as Magath is pointing out in the beginning of season, now again, this is 3 years prior, and Armin and them don't know what's going on with the rest of the world. As Magath and them are pointing out, because they've gone to war with Marley, the rest of the world is divided. The rest of the world still thinks Titans are a problem, and they're trying to devise a way to stop them. So the question of whether or not Armin and could be in that position of power that they are here in parody that's the biggest problem, right? So in a sense, I can kind of see where Eren's coming from and where Yelena is coming from, in that if we activate the rumbling, the old rumbling here, then yes, we can use that to make sure that we are in the position of power to negotiate with the world. The problem is, I don't think that Eren and Yelena and them want to negotiate with the world. I think they just want to wipe them out. I don't think that they want to have this understanding and communication. Once they get to the point where they have the power, they're just going to use it to kill everybody. And I think that Armin's like, I wish there needs to be a middle ground here. There needs to be a midway point, and there's not. Because Armin's like, I want to have a dialogue and a conversation with the world. And I'm totally on board with Armin's thoughts here. But the problem is that this works in parody in this situation, because the Marleyans don't have a way to fight back. They have to sit there, just like Kenny did with Uri. They have to sit there and listen. And then they can all come to an understanding, and it works. And it works. But only because they didn't have a choice in the matter, really. They had to sit there and listen. And Armin and them were kind, and so they allowed that communication to happen. But outside of parody, I don't know if there's a venue for that to happen. The closest thing we've got was Willie. Willie was the closest to that happening. Willie had the power of the Tybers. He had the respect of the world. And what did he do with it? He lured Eren there to stage a big war against parody. Damn it. But Armin's not wrong. He's like, then we'll be the devils that terrorize the world. And will the world listen to us if we go that far? If we go as far as what Yelena is wanting us to do, are we going to be able to backtrack and get people to understand or talk with us? Or will it be too much and then they won't want to forgive us? What's too much? And that's at that moment when he says that, that's when Eren fires off the can. And then, yeah, before it comes to that, can't we talk? Yeah. So it's the idea of talking before it's too late. Mm-hmm. And it ties back to Marco. It ties back to Marco. When Marco was like, can't we talk this out? And Reiner and them said no. And they didn't. And that was the end of Marco, right? And the violence just kept going. And he's on the same logic as Marco. He's like, can't we talk this out? And I like that Mika said in that moment has the scarf, but it's all wrapped around. And Armin says, if we can fix Marley and the world's misconception. And this is the interesting part, is that Armin says, if we can fix their misconception. And Eren goes, what misconception? Eren's like, misconception? He's like, no, and then Armin's like, well, you know how they think we're scary. And Eren goes, the world sees us as monsters who can turn into Titans. They're not wrong. This is the messed up part, is that Eren is like, we are monsters. And Armin is like, we are not monsters. Right? There's our big difference. Armin's like, well, the world thinks we're scary, but we're just like them. And Eren's like, no, we're all scary. We are monsters. And that shot of him just not even looking at Armin, just looking ahead. Again, the attack titan, looking ahead, always focused ahead. It's very symbolic. Yeah, he's like, they're not wrong. And he's just lining up the shot. And then, yeah. And then Mikasa says, but there are Marleyans who like us too. Yeah. She's like, that's not entirely true. And he goes, how many? Yeah. Most of the Marleyans are sitting in prison cells. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. He's like, most of them are in prison cells. They don't have a choice but to like us. Right? And then this is the biggest thing. But given enough time. And then, yeah, Armin says, yeah, we need time. That's the big crux of it. The problem with this is that it takes time. Mm-hmm. It takes time to happen. And you can take that into reality too. The biggest thing going into this, thinking about it, is that my grandfather served in World War II. He was in the Navy. He fought outside of Iwo Jima. And 100 years later, I'm watching an anime. It takes time in communication and understanding. And the biggest thing is time. It just takes time to build all of that, right? I mean, this is such a real world applicable example. So, but yeah, that's the biggest thing, right? Is Armin's like, if we just, and the biggest thing with this series is that as warriors, they don't have time. They have 13 years and then they're done. So there isn't time there. So then Eren says, that's right. And to buy us that time, we have to keep them at bay. And so Eren's like, we need to create time. God, this is so complicated. And it's we need to create time. We need to keep them at bay. Agreed, right? And Eren's trying to use that as an excuse. He's like, well, okay, Armin, if we need time, then we need to do something to keep them at bay. But the thing is, the rumbling seems a bit excessive. Seems a bit extreme, right? Mm-hmm. And this was 3 years ago, Eren. And even back then, 3 years ago, Eren had that look in his eye. And here's the thing. I've been questioning Eren throughout this entire season and his like quiet, cold fury. Going back and rewatching the episodes from season 1 today, no, here's the thing. Eren has evolved. He's developed as a character, but he's not completely different. And this episode shows it. The Eren from season 1 is still there. But it's like rage mode Eren has suddenly gained the power of knowledge and realizes, and his purpose has been refined, right? His purpose has been focused and he can see the goal, right? I think before in season 1, Eren was just, he had an umbrella of, I'm going to kill them all. Kill them all, rage mode Eren. And it was just all Titans, everything, right? No, Eren has come to the real, Eren has a focus. He has a goal in mind and he has an enemy. And the enemy is Marley and the rest of the world. It's broad, but it's there, right? And so it's just, he's like, whatever I need to do to get this accomplished, I'm going to do it. And that's terrifying, right? And I love that shot of, and then, God, and then it's a bridge. Yep. Then he says, we need to create time and I'll do whatever it takes. And you see the gun, the length of the barrel, and then at the end of the barrel, when he fires it off to hit the coffee can, it cuts to Sasha. And this is the cost. And this is him buying time. Yeah, because that's all this was. He's like, we need to create time. And the assault on Marley in episodes 4 through 8 was creating the time. Mm-hmm. To create the time to get the plan going. But here's the problem. Eren was not creating time to get this dialogue. He was creating time so that they can enact the plan. So, but yeah, that visual of him firing at the coffee can and it cutting to Sasha getting hit, genius. I want to see it in the manga so bad. But yeah, and then we see the red and we cut to Sasha dying. And Armin says, I wonder, did we make the right choice? And I don't think Armin thinks that they did. Yeah, that whole buying time. I can't help but think, could there have been some other path? Yeah. So, could there have been another path? And so basically what we're establishing is that, yeah, Eren was like, let's just go with the plan. We got a plan. And Armin and Mikasa went along with it. But now they're seeing like the fruits, what you're reaping what you sowed, right? And he's seeing what's happening. I still think that there's something else within those 3 years that happened between Armin and Eren and Mikasa. There's been a divide. This episode shows the seedlings of that divide. It shows like the seeds being planted where Eren is wanting to break off and do his own thing. Right? And going back to episode 18 or 19 of season 1, when Levi's like, make your own choice. And Eren saying, and I wrote it down, Eren saying that why should I rely on others? Yeah, if I can do it myself. It kind of ties to this, right? But, so I feel like over the next 3 years, after that scene with Eren and Mikasa at the gun range, I feel like they just slowly, Armin and Mikasa probably doubled down on their convictions that there is this other pathway, and Eren doubled down on his convictions, and probably obsessed with this plan to get to Zeke because it aligns with what he originally wanted to do. Flock, you're always in the right. This plan makes Eren right. And so of course he's going to go along with it because everybody in this series, as we've all commented, everybody in the series thinks that they're in the right. And Eren's like, this plan proves that I am. So of course I'm going to go along with it. Ugh. But then, this scene here, I can't help but think, could there have been some other path? At this point, I thought he was talking to Gabby and Falco, and they're not. And again, we cut to Armin in the light with the shell, and to Eren. Eren, it looks like Hades. It looks like the underworld. It looks like he's in the dark with the water around him, with his sculpted abs and back muscles. What the hell, Mappa? Why are you doing this? It's like Reiner 2.0. I don't want to think of Eren as hot. No. He was like a little kid. What are you doing, Isayama? But yeah, I thought I understood Eren better than anyone, even Mikasa. Like, Armin thought he saw him the best. But I don't know anymore. And then, yeah, we see, like, Eren is, like... It looks like Eren's cut his hair, so he's given himself a haircut and he's like washed himself off and washed away like all his grime and gave himself a shave. He's just like the Beast from Beauty and the Beast. He can't do it clean. He can't do it in a nice, neat fashion, so there's just water everywhere, you know. But yeah, Armin doesn't understand Eren anymore. Doesn't get Eren. Here's the problem, though. I don't know if Armin ever understood Eren. That's the thing. I think Armin thought he knew Eren, but I don't know if he ever did. I don't even know if Mikasa ever did. I think that Eren's always been a certain character, and I'd like to think that Armin and Mikasa were friends with him, and they thought they understood him, but I don't know if they ever truly did. And I think Armin might be just now figuring out that he really didn't have a good grasp on Eren like he thought. But yeah. So anyway, and Eren breathing out the cold air is just like the Titan breathing out. Like when he first transformed into the Titan and it was and breathed out the steam. It's so that. Like him breathing out the cold air is him breathing out the steam. It's just like the Titan. It's symbolism. Damn it. So information. Oh God, I'm way into this. And we're only at the information card. Information available for public disclosure. Scout fleet formed to investigate Parody Island after the operation to retake the founding Titan had failed. The first fleet embarked in 851, so a year later. Over the following 3, approximately 4,600 soldiers aboard a total of 32 scout ships and destroyers were sent to Parody Island. However, not a single one has returned to Marley this day. Years. Okay. Okay, so I guess years was added in there. So yeah, so approximately 4,600 prisoners of war were taken, right? Interesting. Okay. So yeah, anyway. And then we go back to the present. So that was all in the past, and now we're back to the present. And the symbolism, you have Eren, it's all very grim. You have Eren in the basement. Eren, someone in episode 5 commented, they're like, season 3, Eren finds the basement. Season 4, Eren is the basement. Oh my God. But yeah, so you have Eren in the basement. You have Mikasa by Sasha's grave. And you have Armin with Annie. So you have 3 different people reflecting in different ways. right? And I feel like Mikasa's on the fence. That's the thing. I feel like in this spectrum of things, you have Eren and you have Mikasa and you have Armin, and Mikasa's towards the middle. She's not really... Mikasa is so devoted to Eren, but she probably thinks that Armin's in the right. So it's like Mikasa's torn, right, and what to do. But I love that the shots of her by that gravestone are so sad. And it's so interesting to see Mikasa show so much emotion. Like, we usually don't see Mikasa expressing a lot of emotion like this, but she's really torn up about Sasha's death. Like, she's really sad about it. And I think she's really sad about it, not only because it was Sasha and her dying, but also because it's showing that Eren has changed. Eren isn't quite what she perceives him as. And I think that just like Armin's realizing that he didn't really ever truly understand Eren, I think Mikasa's realizing that too, that this perception she has of Eren isn't totally accurate, which is why she's so grim about it. But yeah, we have the flowers, the 2 roses, the marigolds, and saying, "Aren't you a Marley, and what the hell are you doing here?" And it's curious how they know he's a Marleyan. I'm like, I guess because he's dressed a certain way. And it says the graveyard's full. And of course, it's somebody from the military police. It's full of people your kind killed. And then Jean and Connie save him. I love that Jean and Connie get him off. And they say he can piss off Nicolo. I guess because he's in the black coat. I guess that's how they distinguish them. They're in the black coats if they're Marleyan. Poor Nicolo. And he says, why? Oh, is Sasha really dead? Yeah. And they said, what the hell were you guys doing? And then Mikasa comes over to join them. And he brought her he loved her. He brought her all the roses. All the white roses. Well, damn it. No, I'm on board the Nicolo Sasha train now. What could have been, Isayama? How dare you? There better be some fan fiction or something out there. Nope. Shot by a kid who sneaked on the airship. Yeah, it's too ridiculous to be true. I said it was no ordinary girl. She'd been trained. And then Nicolo's like, okay, well, she was a warrior candidate. So we're establishing some context. Nicolo knows what that means. He's like, well, she was a kid that had been trained. She was a warrior candidate. So there we go. And then Jean blames himself. He's like, I let my guard down. I'm like, Jean, no, it's not your fault. And Nicolo says, why apologize to me? All I did was cook her food. But it's like, you brought her a dozen roses. You loved her. Damn it. And then this is the thing that cemented it. When Connie puts his hand on his shoulder, okay. And Connie says, thank you for letting her eat so much tasty food, Nicolo. Oh my God. And then Nicolo says, what do you think about this, Connie? So, at first I was like, okay, well, is Nicolo suggesting that Connie loved Sasha? But this line, I see where y'all are coming from now. Connie says, Sasha and I were like twins. So, okay. Rethinking my ships. Yeah, Connie and Sasha were like twins. They were siblings. They're BFF siblings. Because they have been this whole time. Ever since season 2, we've established that Connie and Sasha, both coming from these rural places, they both lost family. They both, came through very similar trials and tribulations, and they became like siblings. And so Connie's like, look, dude, you clearly liked her like romantically, but I did not. We were just like siblings. Uh-oh. And Nicolo's like, ugh, it feels like half of me is gone. Because, yeah, Sasha and Connie were like a pair, so one of them being gone, it does feel like your other half's missing. And that's when, oh my God, her family shows up. And I love this scene. So we have the little girl that was saved from season 2, the little girl with the mini bolo, the dad, and then Sasha's mom. So Sasha's mom was fine. And they brought I think they're orchids. Mm-hmm. And yeah, the mom and the little girl crying. The little girl that was saved by her. And so this is the thing. This is the moment that I was like, this was the hope. And I wish Armin had been there to see it. And I hope that Mikasa tells him about it. Because this was the whole crux of all of this, right? Because Nicolo, who came to form this relationship with Sasha, who Nicolo is not in a place of, neither of them are in a place of power. There's no violence in this scene. There's no violence. There's no guilt. There's nothing. It's Nicolo coming through and saying to the dad, he's like, I'm just a captive Marleyan, but I'm allowed to work as a chef. And your daughter loved my eating my food more than anybody else. And then he says, if you ever want to, please come and eat my food. Like, there was no violence initiating this. They weren't fighting each other and one person had the upper hand. It wasn't like that at all. It was just him offering, out of the kindness of his heart, offering them this moment and this like gratitude and saying like, your daughter was kind to me and I want to repay that kindness to you. And it's so fitting. It's so damn fitting. I'm like, Isayama, you can't tell me that you were really going to kill her off in season 2 after this moment. I was like, were you really going to kill? Was it just all, was this a crack? Was this like clickbait crack theory that you told your editor you were going to kill her off? Because this seems too perfect. Because her dad has been set up since season 2. Her dad was set up to be the open-minded one. Her dad was the one that was like wanting to be progressive and to open up and be open to ideas. Her dad has been set up for that from day one. And the mom just kind of looks like, but we don't really know the mom very well. But the dad in that moment looking at him and them looking at each other, and he holds out his hand and says, on the house, right? Like, it's going to be free for us, right? That's it. That's the thing. He says, of course. That's it in action. That's everything. It just took time and it took that understanding, but they did it. Right? And yeah, it's not going to work for everyone. It says there's enemies everywhere, but not everyone's an enemy, right? Like there's always going to be conflict and there's always going to be people that aren't going to like him. Like that guy that told him to piss off. Yeah, he was violent to him and he told him to piss off and he was kicking him. But when John and them came over, he left, right? Like there's always going to be conflict, but there still can be cooperation. There still can be peace in the broader sense, right? Just this whole killing the world thing is to solve the problem is just perpetuating the cycle. And I feel like that one moment with that dad is like emphasizing everything Isayama is standing for, but then we cut away from it and get to Zeke. So, this episode. Okay. So yeah, and this is mirroring, again, showing the cycle and the mirroring and everything that the people read in the newspapers, just like the Marley and people read about the Mid-Eastern Allied Forces, the war. It's the same thing, right? And Zeke is seeing that it's the same thing there. He's saying, you guys are calling it a victory. Isn't ignorance a scary thing? Like, just, for the record, and I said this at the beginning of the reaction and the discussion, I love the dynamic of Zeke and Levi. It is such a dynamic. It is so intriguing. Their dynamic is probably one of the best things about this show right now. Because you have a man, you have Zeke, who is responsible for killing Erwin. He threw the boulder that hit Erwin and killed him. He is responsible for Erwin's death. And Erwin is someone that Levi cared for more than anyone else. And you have them stuck in a cart together, forced to work together, and they're two enemies. It's amazing. Isn't ignorance a scary thing? He's like, you guys think it's a victory now, but you've just got the whole world against you. Mm-hmm. But it's like, isn't that part of your plan, Zeke? I love it. And I love that Levi's response, because Levi's body language is closed off. Like, Levi's not happy to be there. He's just like, if I send your dead body to Marley and reveal your little plot, then what? Yeah. Then what you gonna do? Your Gramps and Granny are done for. So basically, Levi's like, okay, if I send your body back to them with the plan that you have cooked up here, your Granny and Gramps are done for. So Levi is testing him. Levi is trying to be like, okay, why are you, you sold out your father to protect your grandparents. This whole plan, if it's found out by Marley, is going to kill those grandparents that you betrayed your own father for to protect. So what's the deal? Right? What's the deal? Mm-hmm. But if the secret plan of yours is real, I can wait to chop you up. So he's like, if it's a hoax, then your whole family's screwed. But if it's real, I guess I'll hold out. Because it's part of his survival. Either way works for me. And then, yeah, this is the part that got me suspicious. Zeke is like, well, I appreciate your graciousness, but don't I get to meet Eren first? Suspicious. Like, okay, you guys were just talking to each other on the plane, but you couldn't transform into a Titan at that point, could you? No, you couldn't. So now that Zeke's all healed up, he wants to meet Eren again. Funny that I was like, don't get good vibes. Don't get good vibes. Nope. Mm-mm. Not at all. And he's like, don't I get to meet him first? And Levi's like, ha 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 ha. Don't be in such a hurry. We've got the finest hotel for you. And I thought when he said that, the finest hotel, he meant a jail cell, like at the bottom, like what Eren was in back in episode 13, like in episode 14. He says, you can stay there and relax a while. And everything's in the green. And I love that. He's like, hey, can you please stop glaring at me? Yeah, Zeke's saying that to Levi. Okay, so there's that scene. So I thought they were taking him to a jail cell. Not the case. So the Titan serum. Let's talk about that. I thought we were done with that, but we are not. Because Ishikawa doesn't want us to have nice things. Nope. So apparently at the time, so they really only had the one vial left, right? That we know of. So this is all the Titan serum we stole from Marley. So there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then we have, what is that? At least 30 vials of the serum. Okay. So 30 vials. It's not a lot. I mean, it could hold you out for a while on Titan Warriors. It could last you a bit, right? But it's not a lot. That's all that we could steal. But you'll have trouble reproducing it. Interesting. So the royal family, that's curious. So I guess they don't have any more. I guess the ones that were brought. I was like, why did Rod Reese bring all of the Titan serum from the royal family to that chapel? Couldn't he just brought a bottle? But he didn't. So there's about 30-ish vials. And not able to reproduce. Why not? Why can't we do that? That's a mystery too. Why can't we reproduce it? What's the deal? Why is it special? And so then, but Pixie says, no, we should manage fine with this much. Okay. I only wish we could properly thank you. And this part's so tense. We owe you so much already. We were ignorant, but you gave us hope. For us to suspect you, we're truly no better than devils. So yeah, and then yeah, Yelena's like, for 3 years we've done nothing but show we're friends of the Eldians, right? So it's unfortunate the guns we brought were meant to give Eldians freedom. That's the thing, right? So Pixis is like, we are truly devils, that we can't trust you in this moment because of everything that's happened. And Yelena's like, yeah, it is a shame because we brought these guns to help give you freedom from Marley and you're using them against us. But it's so tense, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't fully trust Zeke. I don't. And so I do question Yelena and them a little bit. I'm like, Onyon seems like he's doing the right thing. Yelena, I don't trust. Yelena and Zeke, I don't trust. And it, you know, because their plan is kind of flying in the face of all this. And I think Pixis is wise to be cautious. Pixis and Levi seem like they're in the same camp. They're both like, we want to trust you. We're grateful for what you've done. But we're going to be cautious because y'all can easily have the upper hand in this situation. We were ignorant and you gave us hope, but I can't say that I blame them for being cautious. That's the problem. I know it's selfish to ask, but can you overlook our cautiousness for a while? Yeah. We have to keep Zeke on a tight leash. And then I love that Yelena says, it's fine, Pixis. We'll dine at the same table again soon. It's just setting up so much stuff there, but it's so tense in this moment because I don't fully trust Zeke. There's a lot of factors in this that are questionable, and Eren is just like in the mode of fight to win, and we'll talk about that. And I'm like, Eren, I feel like he's overlooking something, and I don't know what it is yet. And then so Zeke is like, this is my hotel? Huh? And they park out there and he's like, you got a problem with it? It's a forest of giant trees. I can't think of a better place for you. And then, yeah, and Zeke calls him out. He's like, oh, it might be lots of fun with ODM gear. So you'll be easily, yeah, yes. He says, it might be fun. You know, I can't, because I'm sure that Zeke's like, oh, okay, you're going to put me up here because if I transform into the Beast Titan, my movement is going to be limited. And so you could just whip around with the ODM gear and kill me easily. Right? And then this line is curious. He says, do you think I could show Gabby and Falco this natural wonder? That made me suspicious of him too. I was like, no. And Levi's like, God, no. He's like, no. Whether they see the sights or not depends on you. Okay. So we have these different, the allies in the span of, you know, these allies they've had for 3 years, Yelena and Onyon and them, they're now suspicious of now that Zeke's with them. Because, yeah, everything is super tense, right? Because Zeke is now on the island with Eren. And this whole rumbling thing that we've built up 3 years waiting for has the possibility to happen. And so now everybody's on edge, right? I'm curious why Levi has put Zeke in the forest of the giant trees, except that maybe to keep him there, because my fear would be, here's my fear. When he first introduced the forest of the giant trees, the only thing I could think of is like, Zeke he could turn people into titans, right? You don't want that, right? So Zeke worries me because Zeke has the ability to turn people into titans. And when he said, I want to show Gabby and Falco these wonders, I'm like, my fear would be he'd turn them into titans, right? I don't know how Zeke's power works and what the conditions have to be to turn them into titans. I don't know that. I'm assuming we'll find out, so don't spoil me. But when he said he wanted to bring Gabby and Falco there, I was like, ugh. It gave me very much Grisha Yeager vibes of Grisha taking Eren into the forest and turning Eren into a titan. That's the immediate thing I thought of. It was like, oh, well, Zeke would take Gabby and Falco there and turn them into titans. Ugh. That's what I was thinking of. But the only circumstance he would do that in would be to have Gabby or Falco eat him. But Gabby and Falco aren't royal blood, so I don't trust Zeke. Something's up. If he's a triple agent all this, I won't be surprised. Something's up. I don't know. But we cut back to Gabby and Falco in the jail cell. And this is what surprised me the most. I kept in this scene looking for Armin, thinking that Armin would be there talking to him. But at that moment, I realized Armin is not there. And I was like, oh, Armin's not there with them. Oh, no. Because I wanted Falco to hear this story. And Gabby to hear this story, but they're not. Falco is just wore out. Falco is like, he's looking up at, they're in a jail cell. They're in a cage, right? And Falco's just dazed. And meanwhile, Gabby is like a caged monster biting her nails, which is like a source of anxiety, you know, like stress relief. And all she says is Eren Yeager. And she looks just like Eren from season 1. A lot of you have said in the comments on Patreon that people hate Gabby. And I'm like, do these people also hate Eren? Because if they hate Eren, I get it. If you hate Eren Yeager as a character and you hate Gabby, I totally understand. I'm like, they are pretty much the same character at this point. At this point, Gabby is Eren from season 1. But if you don't hate Eren and you hate Gabby, I don't quite get it. Because I'm like, they're essentially the same character, just on opposite sides of the spectrum. Opposite sides of the fence. But she's like drooling and biting her nail, and she's obsessed with Eren and destroying. She is the last person that needs Titan Shifter powers right now. That's for sure. And then, and Falco's just sitting there like dazed, trying to take it all in. And I'd wish that Armin had been there to talk to them. But that's hashtag regrets. My only regret is that Armin was not talking to Falco and Gabby in all of this. I feel like if anybody needs to talk to them, it's Armin. And Armin makes a note. He's like, Eren would have done it alone. He knows in the 3 years he's figured out that Eren would have done it alone. And I love that he's like stroking the shell as he says this. He would have done it alone. Whether we helped him or not, the worst would have happened anyways. Yep. In any case, we killed a lot of people. So Armin is acknowledging that he knows Eren would have done it. the difference is that Armin knows that he's like, Eren would have gone and done this by himself anyway. They've obviously figured this out over the course of 3 years. He's just like, Eren would have done it anyway, but because one, they care about Eren, but two, because parody needs, they've built up this whole plan. They need Eren to make it work, so they really they had no choice. It's like they had to go. In any case, we killed a lot of people. The Navy, Army, and civilians got dragged into it. And just like that, all were lost. But unless that port was destroyed, Marley would have retaliated and attacked the island. So Armin is aware of where Eren is coming from. Armin understands that they really, Eren was going to go through with this one way or another. And if they hadn't attacked the port, then Willie's plan would have worked and Parody would have been attacked. He's like, so if we didn't go in and help Eren, we were going to get attacked anyway. But God, this moment, we killed any hope for peace, but we had no choice. That's why they're so upset with Eren, that their chance for peace was destroyed. And they had no choice. Again, just like Bertolt said, that it's different though. Bertolt said, I love you, but I have no choice, right? I think Bertolt did have a choice, in a sense. I mean, we can argue that to the ends of the earth, right? But I think in this case, it really was down to, it's really down to Eren. Yeah, it's really down to Eren and this whole plan and Zeke's plan. Yep. And maybe that's part of Zeke's plan, is making it to where there wasn't a choice. That's the scary thing. Zeke's whole thing could have been, you know what? We're not going to let Parody have a chance to create peace with the rest of the world, because that would have been the end of Marley, right? If Parody had ever, had any chance of creating peace, that could have been the end of Marley. But Zeke's like, nope. Zeke's like, we're going to make it to where there is no option for that, right? We're going to attack Marley, because Zeke orchestrated Willie's thing too, right? That's another thing that makes Zeke suspicious to me, and I don't like Zeke's character because of it, because I'm like, this whole plan with Willie and everything is based off the reports that Zeke gave, and Reiner was involved in it too. So you could argue that Reiner really would have gave the reports too, but Zeke had a hand in it as well. And Zeke set it all up in the eternal. Zeke seems like him and Eren, they planned this whole thing out to go along with Willie's plan, but they've orchestrated it in a way that, like Armin said, there was no choice involved. If they did nothing, then Willie was going to plan to attack Parody, and then there would be no peace because they would have been attacked. If they, there was no choice. But I'm like, Eren and Zeke kind of, along with Willie, made it to where it was like that situation. So it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating. And I hate Armin being so sad at this moment. We had no choice. He's like, just like you guys that day. And at that point, I was like, oh my God. He's talking to Annie. And they're and they have the lamp and stuff, and they're hoisting her little egg bubble up. Just like you all. He's like, we've been forced into the same situation you all are in. And he understands. I was like, if Armin getting Bertolt's memories would allow him to be in the same boat as Reiner to understand that they had no choice, that's exactly what's happened. And Armin is in the same boat as Reiner now. He gets it. But that line, the way his voice cracked when he was like, hey, Annie, say something, please. And we just see Annie there. I get the Annie and Armin ship now. I get it. I've never wanted Annie to wake up and talk to Armin more than ever. I'm curious if Annie can actually hear him, or I'm curious if she can actually hear him, if she heard all of that. That would be interesting. So say something, please. And then we cut back to Sasha, and I guess that's Sasha that she's at the gravestone for, right? I'm guessing that's it. Y'all tell me if it's somebody different. But then we have Armin. Armin is clinging. Armin is stuck being upset that they had no choice and peace was destroyed, and being very melancholy about it. And then you have Mikasa. And Mikasa, I'm running out of board space, but Mikasa says fight or die. She says fight or die, win and live. And then we cut to Eren pulling his hair up. I was like, you maybe should have left it a little bit longer. Would have been easier to pull up. As somebody whose hair looks about the same length as Eren in this, I'm like, you may would have left it a little bit longer so it'd been easier to pull up. But yeah, all the water and everything. And him just sitting there breathing out like a damn titan. And you see his eyes just looking cold and emotionless. The only way to win is to fight. Mm-hmm. Oh, damn. And then he says, fight. And it's like he's giving himself a damn pep talk. He's like just telling himself in the mirror to fight. And why does he have a six-pack? Why is he ripped? Why am I not surprised? We don't get shirtless Reiner, but we get shirtless Eren. What is this nonsense? I don't get shirtless King Jean. I don't get shirtless Reiner, but you're gonna give me shirtless Eren? Isayama, I know you're playing to some fan services, but not this girl's. I don't want to think Eren's hot. No. And I think it's interesting that in the mirror, you have on the one side is lit up, and the other side, the light is out. Curious, right? There's only one light on. I feel like that's symbolic in some manner, but we don't know for sure yet. I'm like, also, where are you at? Where is Eren? What basement is he at? Why is he shirtless? He's pulled his hair up into, like, some kind of man bun. What we be doing? So this is curious. So Mikasa says the fight or die, win and live. And to win, you fight. So there's this cycle, basically. It's the cycle. Mikasa is acknowledging that there is a cycle, and Eren is all on board the cycle. And the cycle is that you're either going to fight or you're going to die. So that's where Parody's at this moment. If we don't fight Marley, we're going to die. If we don't fight the world. So Parody is either going to fight the world or it's going to die, right? And if you win, you live, right? And how do you win? You fight. So, yep, we're either going to die or we're going to live, and the only way to win. So basically, it's not even a cycle. It's just like so we're either going to, we don't want to die, we want to live. Right? Don't want to die, we want to live. In order to live, we have to win. And in order to win, we have to fight. That's it. And that's the cycle. And Mikasa is saying that we either fight or we die. We don't want to die, and we want to win. And in order to win, we want to live. In order to live, we have to win. And Eren's like completing the equation. In order to win, we have to fight. And Eren's whole thing is we're going to fight. And I feel like Mikasa gets where Eren is coming from. She's just not happy about it. Armin is still way over here being like sad that they have no choice and wondering if there's another option. Like Armin seems like he's holding that shell, and that shell is the idealism, the hope that he has that there may be some other way around this, that there may be some other alternative. And I feel like Armin, even though he says that our chance for peace was destroyed and we have no choice, I feel like he's still going to fight for that chance of peace. Eren is like, no, it's not, peace isn't even on the table anymore. It's just like, we have to live. And in order to live, living is our birthright. In order to do that, we have to win, and we have to fight to win. It's basically, it's Eren from season 1, only much more focused and older and more mature. Awesome. And I've talked for over 2 hours. Cool. Cool beans. Yep. Cool beans. No worries. No worries at all. I loved this episode, but this episode reaffirmed I'm on board and I'm in Armin camp for sure. I'm in Armin camp for sure. I'm glad that Armin acknowledges in this episode that he is self-aware of all the decisions and the ramifications of them. So Armin is not going into this peace talk naively. He understands the situation they're all in. He's just not happy about it. Eren seems like he's pretty indifferent about it, and I think that's a big difference. Being unhappy and being indifferent are two totally different emotions, and they have totally different weights to them. So being unhappy about something suggests that you can potentially see some empathy in it. Being indifferent means you don't see the empathy. And I think that even back 3 years ago, we saw that Eren was like, working with Marley, no, that's not gonna work. And it's like, ah! So there are still some questions. Where the last image we got of Historia was in the past. I'm very curious about Historia's view of all this now. She is the queen. She's the queen of parody. If Eren and Zeke have this major plan, she's royalty. I want to know how Historia is involved in all this. I want to see Historia's involvement in the present. That's what I want to see. One, I want to see Historia's involvement in the present. I can easily see how Eren and old Flock are going to woo the Marleyan or the Eldian military, the military police, over to their side, because they're probably thinking, screw the Marleyans. They're going to use Sasha as a martyr for their cause against her will. And I'm sure that's what's going to happen there. So I'm sure that's how they get them on board. Going against everything I thought in the recap. But so we don't know exactly the extent of what's happened over the course of 3 years. We've gotten pretty good hints at it. And if we don't cut through anything else over the last 3 years, I'll be okay with it. I'll be like, okay, we've gotten enough. The seeds, we see the seeds planted, so you can kind of put 2 and 2 together. But I'm hoping as the next several episodes go on, we do occasionally flash back and see some things to kind of fill in the gaps, because this whole thing with Zeke and Eren I want filled in. Like when Eren went to Marley for the first time, he had to have met Zeke at some point, right? Or was it just the baseball glove and the baseball? Was that it? Or did he actually meet up with the Beast Titan? We don't know. Yep. What was the deal? And then this whole thing with Yelena, their plans, because yeah, it seems like the anti-Marleyan volunteers, their plan still seems in line with Eren, so Pixis and Levi and all of them being suspicious of all of them would kind of imply that they are suspicious of Eren, right? If they're suspicious of Zeke and the anti-Marleyan volunteers, then they're suspicious of Eren, which makes sense because Hanji said, you know, in trusting us, we lost trust in you. So Hanji's now questioning this whole plan too, because it's caused you to go rogue, and Eren's like, well, whatever, we got the job done, that's all I care about. So it calls a lot of things into question, like his entire faith in them, like his relationship with the Survey Corps and everything. And again, ties back to Bite. Lots to think about. So I'll probably wait until after the next episode comes out. I am so curious to hear your thoughts. I know by the time that this comes out on Patreon and YouTube, I'll be far ahead. But hopefully, I mean, whatever comments, I'll probably address in the recap, if anything. But I won't be so far ahead. I don't think I'll be to the recap by the time this comes out on Patreon or YouTube. So I'll definitely be able to address some comments. But I am so excited to hear your thoughts on this. Holy crap. Mind blown. So excited to hear your thoughts. But yeah. So anyway, I'm really curious to know your thoughts down below. Please no spoilers. But yeah, I'm staying off social media. I'm officially blinded as much as I can because I know things are going to get crazy with season 4 part 2. So yeah, we'll talk about that as it gets closer. But yeah, so in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll see y'all next time with episode 10 of season 4 of Attack on Titan. Bye.